All right, guys, it is actually several hours later now. I have been working on sourcing the appropriate software that we're going to load onto this thing. I've also given it a once-over, you could say. I've cleaned it up a bit. Now, I have decided that we are going to swap the hard drive out with an SSD before we install Windows Vista on this machine. The hard drive that's in there is just really slow, and I'm not expecting this thing to fly at all. It's still only going to have 3 gigs of RAM, and it's still going to be Windows Vista. But I do want this thing to be cool and enjoyable to play with. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm planning on putting a couple of old games on there. So we are going to flip this thing over real quick and install an SSD. And I actually did find one of my microfiber cloths. I thought I had left them all in St. Louis, but one of them was in a box here in Denver. So we'll lay that out real quick. We will flip the laptop over, and this should be an incredibly simple process. I will grab my trusty pocket knife and unscrew the screws. That screw was fairly loose, so maybe the sellers did swap out the hard drive at some point. This back one was a bit tougher. All right, so after both of those screws have been unscrewed a bit, we can lift the cover off of the hard drive area, and if we tilt this up, you'll see there is a sort of bracket and mount. Looks like this hard drive's not even screwed in. Actually, there should be a screw here, and I don't think there's supposed to be a screw over there, but here, definitely. So yeah, that's interesting. We'll just pull this thing out. And okay, so this machine does use normal 2.5-inch SATA drives. However, it's got this weird bracket that you need to use to connect to the drive because of the way that the port is laid out. So this drive is screwed into the bracket at least. It was not screwed into the system, but it was screwed into the bracket. So we will unscrew the 4 screws here. All right, and those screws have been removed, so now we should just be able to drop the hard drive out, and the bracket will pull out of the SATA port like so. All right, so this is, like I said, a Seagate drive. Seagate's not my favorite storage brand. I've had exactly one hard drive fail in my life, and it was a Seagate drive. I have never had a Seagate 2.5-inch drive fail before. And you can see this is a 250 gig drive. I think my laptop had something like 320 gigs. Actually, no, I think it did have 250. So it would have been basically this exact drive that was in my laptop originally. Today we're going to be putting in this SSD. Now, this is an Inland Professional SSD. This was purchased from Micro Center. It's a no-name drive. The drive does not even have an OEM brand programmed into it. A BIOS or UEFI computer would normally recognize a Samsung or an OCZ or a Western Digital SSD by the brand name. This thing just reports itself as solid-state drive. So it's incredibly cheap. It is not the fastest thing in the world, and I would not use this in a mission-critical system per se, but for just retro projects, fun things like this, they're great because definitely going to be faster than a hard drive. And I didn't want to sink a bunch of money into an expensive SSD for this machine. I just wanted something a little bit faster to speed the project up a bit and make it that much more fun. This drive did come from my friend Michael Chanot. He gave it to me during Extra Life 2019 this year. So thank you to him for that. And after fitting the bracket in, we will set the new drive into our cage or our bracket. I will screw these 4 screws in real quick. All right, and that is screwed into the bracket, so we will go ahead and set it back down in the laptop here. There we go. Cool, so that is in place. The 2 screws that are missing shouldn't be too big of a deal. I've actually seen this with other manufacturers of laptops where, actually, I'm just completely wrong. The 2 screws that are in this plate also screw in the bracket to the machine there. So there were no screws missing. Everything is exactly how it should be. So we will go ahead and set this cover back down and screw that in. Cool, so now this thing has an SSD in it, and it will be that much faster. My camera angle here was more to show you the screen than maintenance. So we'll flip this thing back over, pull the towel out of the way. All right, and we will pop this thing open. So I did clean the screen a little bit, as you can see, and I am going to zoom in a bit here. I might adjust the lighting in a little bit once we are into the OS installation and everything. I'm going to go ahead and plug in the barrel connector that was plugged into the other unit a moment ago. We'll plug it into this one. All right, so you can see the power indicator came on there. And I'm going to try and move a couple of these lights out of the way so my camera's autofocus has an easier time. So I've got a USB drive right now. We're going to try and install Vista off of a USB drive. No idea if it's going to work. I've never done that before, but I am relatively low on DVDs. I've got one blank DVD here. So if I need to, I will absolutely burn a Vista DVD because I've got an ISO ready. But if we can get this to boot off of a USB drive and do it that way instead, that would be more economical. So F10, if I remember correctly, should be the boot menu for this computer. I just hit F10. I don't remember the little Phoenix logo on the bottom right of the splash screen. That's a system-specific thing. Okay, so let's see. We've got system configuration, boot options. All right, boot order. USB floppy, USB diskette on key. Cool. Okay, so the laptop at least supports USB booting. I wasn't sure if it would. And the notebook hard drive, we are going to move down. How do we move it down? F5 and F6. F5 to move it down. So we'll move that down to the bottom. Other than network adapter, we're not going to be network booting. I do not have a server for that here. So we will exit saving changes, and let's see if our USB drive is going to work the first time. I'm keeping an eye on the drive. So I used a program called WoUSB. It's a successor to WinUSB that used to exist. Okay, and it looks like our flash drive is blinking. So WoUSB, I believe it created a grub installation. However, I selected FAT32, and it did freeze during the creation of the flash drive. So, okay, so yeah, this isn't booting right now. Let me just turn the laptop off there and let me recreate this USB drive with NTFS instead. We'll see if that works better. All right, I know I said I was going to try making an NTFS version of the drive, but when I was doing that, I saw that the NTFS button in WoUSB was marked as being for EFI computers, and I am almost positive this computer is using a legacy BIOS, not EFI. However, I did try creating the FAT version again, and this time I let it run a little longer and it did complete successfully. So let's see if we get grub. Yes, we do get grub this time. Cool. Well, it says welcome to grub at least. Cool. All right. So we will not need to burn a DVD, it looks like. This is the first time I've ever installed Windows Vista from a USB drive. Interestingly enough, I've got a ton of like Windows 7 disks around. I don't have as many Vista stuff laying around because the laptop came with Vista that I had before. So I didn't have as much of a reason to be looking for disks and things. Not going to get too into that for obvious reasons, but here, this is loading nice and quickly, which is cool. This is the Windows Vista setup screen. Please wait. We are at a very low resolution right now, which is normal for OS installs. All right, Windows Vista. So we'll go ahead and click next here with the default language. I did have Windows Vista Home Premium on my old laptop. I went ahead and grabbed Ultimate for this one since we're just trying to deck out the software on this as much as we can, right? Okay, so we are going to just delete this was Linux stuff. I had a Pop! OS install on this SSD during Extra Life. So we'll delete our boot partition, we'll delete our OS partition, our old OS partition. And we'll delete our recovery partition. So now we've just got unallocated space after this is done deleting, yep. And we will select that and click next. And we'll see how quickly Windows Vista is actually able to install because this will be going to an SSD. Wow, you can see the hard drive light on solid for a good second there. This is a relatively slow SSD, but like I said, I think it will still be faster than our hard drive. Okay, good. Copying files is moving up in the percentages. The flash drive that I'm using is also very old and probably not the best, but I've used it for many an OS install. I think it's the second oldest flash drive that I own, and the oldest flash drive that I own I do not use for OS installs. So that's a cool tool, WoUSB. I've never used that before. I've had people ask me, how do I make a Windows bootable flash drive from Linux? And I've never really had a great answer. But it sounds like WoUSB is supposed to work just as well with Windows 10 as it does with older versions. I think Vista is the oldest version it supports. Technically, it says it starts at Windows 7 in terms of what it's able to do, but Windows Vista and Windows 7 for the installer and a lot of the underlying stuff. They were extremely similar. Everyone knows the story. Windows Vista was a big rewrite from Windows XP. It was a big change. It took them years to make, and then it kind of flopped because there were some problems with it. There were some usability issues, like the user account control being a little bit too naggy, and there were some stability issues that people were not used to from Windows XP. And it did take more graphics power to run Windows Vista than XP because it had things like the fancy glass-styled windows. And of course, Microsoft didn't get rid of all of that in Windows 7. The glass theme was still in Windows 7. But they did clean up a bit. They removed the sidebar and some other features. They left gadgets in, but they removed the sidebar. But yeah, Windows 7 was really it was a service pack of Vista, was how a lot of people looked at it. And even though that's a fair assessment, I think, I mean, Windows XP went up to Service Pack 3. I don't know what Windows 7 went up to, but Vista only ever got 2 service packs. I personally really enjoyed using Windows Vista. I think it got a lot of flack, and I'm not going to say it's the best operating system in the world. I mean, I'm using Linux on my computer, so obviously any Windows version I think is inferior as an operating system to GNU Linux. But, you know, in terms of Windows and as far as Windows goes, Vista was very cool. It had a lot of glossy effects that we'll take a look at, and I am very excited to play around with it a bit. I can hear the fan spinning away in there, and it does sound a little bit quieter than the fan in the other laptop, which is still sitting off to the side over here. This one seemed like the fan might be going out, or at the very least, it may be off balance just from years of spinning. The fan in this machine sounds, I mean, I can definitely hear it, but it sounds more normal. And this is probably the quickest installation of Windows Vista that any of us will ever see, because we are not reading from an optical drive, so we don't have to wait for the CD to spin around. Not writing to a hard drive, so we don't have to wait for the hard disk to spin around. We really are limited to the processor speed, the bus speeds on the motherboard. But this is going very quickly. All right, Windows needs to restart to continue. I'm going to click restart now, and when the system boots back up, I think the USB drive is still going to go to grub, so I may need to manually remove the USB drive. We'll see what happens here. So if grub starts loading, I'm going to hit escape, I think. Yeah. All right, well, I do remember that. I remember... Okay. I have just unplugged the flash drive. We should boot back into our hard disk now. Or SSD, rather. All right, we are booting. Please wait while Windows sets up your computer. All right, and we are back in the installer, completing our installation. Okay. That is a cursor we have with the spinning loading symbol. And we're rebooting one more time. All right, guys, and here we are at the first time user setup. So we are going to type in a username. I will use Jacob, obviously. We'll type in a password. All right, and as usual, I'm going to leave my profile picture on the default. That's what I always do. So we'll click Next. The computer name, as usual, I'm going to name it after the product that it is. So HP Pavilion TX. And I'm actually not sure exactly which model this one is. On my old one, I would always put HP Pavilion TX 2510 US because that was the specific model number for my machine. But what we'll do here is I'm going to zoom out a little bit and tilt the camera down, and we're just going to tip the laptop back because I don't want to leave this screen. I'm going to take a picture of the serial number on here, and there is a Windows Vista license on there as well. All right, and I'm gonna see if I can't look that serial number up real quick. All right, well, I did just take a quick look, and unfortunately, I cannot find the specific model number of this laptop. HP's warranty system recognized the serial number as a TX2000 series computer, but my other computer, which, like I said, I know the specific model number for that one, it just recognized it as a TX2500. It didn't have the specific model number, just the series it was part of. So for now, we're going to put in HP Pavilion TX2000. Oh, and that's too long. So what? What did I always do? All right, well, we'll just type in HP Pavilion, and Pavilion only has one L. I always forget, but it's written right down there on the corner of the display. We will keep the default Windows Vista desktop background. I don't actually have to click that one. We are going to use recommended settings. However, Vista is tricky these days when it comes to installing updates. And actually, I almost want to, let me see. I'm going to click use recommended settings, but we are going to be careful with the updates so that we don't get stuck, and I'll show you guys what I mean by that later. We are in Mountain Time right now. Next. Okay, so we will start. We'll see if our resolution automatically adjusts to a proper resolution or if it stays at this one. Please wait while Windows checks your computer's performance. So it's performing that thing where it sees how much of its effects it's supposed to enable or disable based on your graphics performance and whatnot. And we get our little slideshow showing some of the different features of Windows Vista and selling points. And this slideshow is going very quickly, I think, because the laptop is performing pretty well with that SSD. The most vivid 3D graphics. Vista was definitely a 3D graphics operating system. And of course, Vista was the first version of Windows to include a search bar in the Start menu, which everybody relies on nowadays in pretty much any operating system or most popular desktop environments. They always put a slide about security in. For Windows XP, it says, your computer will be more secure than ever before. And I know that one off the top of my head, but I don't know the Vista one off the top of my head, even though I just saw it. All right, and that was fast enough. Okay. The speakers in this thing are working well. Interesting. So it's asking us to put our password in immediately, and it is giving us an on-screen keyboard. Huh. Did not expect that, but I will go ahead and... Oh. I've already forgotten what password I used for this thing. So let's log in. And yeah, it does look like we will need to... Oh, that's right. This is the NVIDIA machine. So maybe we'll need to connect to the internet and grab the NVIDIA graphics drivers. I'm going to try and install Windows updates first thing. But yeah, that might be affecting our resolution. We'll have to see. Yeah, because we don't have Aero enabled right now. There's no glass effect. This window is opaque, which looks terrible. This is the Welcome Center that I always like to keep enabled just because it's... I mean, it's one of those things, like, you don't get welcome centers in today's computers. This would be considered so intrusive and annoying, having a welcome center pop up. But it's got things you can do to get started with Windows, offers from Microsoft. You can get your details about your PC right there. So yeah, we are installed here. We've got the Windows Vista sidebar that I am personally a fan of. You know, I'm a KDE Plasma user on Linux, and I don't actually have any widgets on my desktop right now, which is interesting to note. Let me go to our control panel, and let's see if I can adjust screen resolution. I can. Okay. Oh, well, we can go from 800 by 600 to a whopping 1024 by 768, which is a little bit better, but still not great. So we do want to install the NVIDIA graphics driver when we can. Do we have a wireless driver? That's the next question. If I click on, let's see, connect to a network. Windows cannot find any networks, so we don't have a Wi-Fi driver right now either. Okay, and I was just verifying on the bottom of the laptop that the system is not in airplane mode. Oh, do you hear that? I'm still able to use the switch to enable and disable the Wi-Fi. That was the Windows device removed sound when I disabled it, but I have enabled it again. I will grab an Ethernet cable so that we can connect temporarily and download what we need to download. All right, and I will plug this thing in. Just plugged it in now. We are getting hard drive activity. I hope that means that our hardware NIC is connected at least, or detected. We will see here. You are currently not connected to any networks. Connect to a network. Let's see. If we go into Device Manager, do we even see our... Continue. Do we even see our NIC at all? No. So we've got Broadcom 802.11n network adapter. That is going to be the wireless. And then our Ethernet. Oh, that's right. It's NVIDIA. NVIDIA apparently was making wireless adapters back in the day because it's an NVIDIA in-force networking controller that we've got in this thing. And you know, I think I may have the drivers for this stored on a flash drive. So I'm going to see if I can... Oh, wait. No, we're connected now. Good. So let me just open up Internet Explorer. The first thing we need to do is we need to grab a tool that's going to install Windows updates for us. I'm going to go to download.wsusoffline.net. And I'll explain this as I'm going, but I do want to go fairly quickly because I don't want Windows Vista to check for updates itself. The reason is because Microsoft is not doing a great job right now with hosting Windows Vista updates. And so in my testing in a virtual machine, I would actually get stuck and not be able to ever install updates if Windows started trying to check for updates before I had the chance to stop it and install them manually. WSUS stands for Windows Server Update Service. And it's a tool that Microsoft provides that basically lets network and server administrators download the updates from Microsoft and then distribute them within their organization without having to have each computer download from Microsoft individually. So it saves Microsoft bandwidth to start with, and then it also saves the organization internet bandwidth. We are going to select Windows Vista 64-bit updates. We are going to click Start here. And so this neat tool called WSUS Offline Update, this is a tool that you can use to utilize the WSUS service to download Windows updates and install them offline on a client-per-client basis. Normally, in order to take control of the updates away from Microsoft and give it to yourself, you would have to set up your own Windows server, which of course is proprietary Microsoft software, so it's not really taking control away from them. But you'd have to set that up and then point your client to it. This is going to give us a tool that will install the updates manually, quote unquote, offline. You can see we're downloading them right now, but this is not going to install them until we run the separate installation tool. And by running the updates this way, after we get the first round of updates installed, then Windows Update will start functioning properly again. We can finish it up through Windows Update. I just do not want it to get stuck perpetually checking for updates if it was to try to check for them right now. I believe the issue has something to do with how many updates there are available for Vista in the first place, and then how many this machine would already have installed, because it's on Service Pack 2, which includes a lot of updates. So it grinds to a halt and sometimes never finishes, according to what people were saying online, trying to compare the list of all possible updates from Microsoft to its list of all installed updates. All right, and our fans are kicking up here as we are processing all those downloads and creating a catalog for them. And we are downloading more updates. I thought we were done earlier, but still 3 to go. Oh, we're downloading update 2 of 21 now. I'm going to go ahead and stop the camera, and I'll start it when this is closer to finishing. All right, that is finally finished. That did take a good while. I won't bother checking the log right now. But now we do have a folder called Client, and if we go in there and run our update installer application, and we'll allow that. So we are not going to install Internet Explorer 8 or 9. We're on Windows Vista Service Pack 2, which should already have Internet Explorer 9. And as you can see, 10 and 11 are grayed out because they don't work on Vista. Everything else we will leave at the defaults, and we'll go ahead and click Start. Now we may get stuck here in a couple of minutes. All right, listing IDs of missing updates. So right now I can see that our hard disk is being read. The storage indicator light is solid. I will give this a couple of minutes to run, but if it does not finish in a few minutes, I am going to force it past this step, which we can do by stopping a Windows Update service that should be running by default. All right, guys, so the hard drive indicator light has slowed down a bit, and I am going to go ahead and kill this step of the process. I know it says to please be patient, but this is a common thing, and I've already tested it in a virtual machine, and it did work fine. So we will open up a new command prompt as administrator, and we will run net stop wuau serve. The Windows Update service is stopping, okay? So that has been stopped, and now after a second, whoops, our first terminal should error out of the listing IDs step in a moment or two. The problem here is that the Windows Update service, it is screwed. It doesn't know what's going on. We really just need to install those updates, and that will actually help with this situation. All right. And we have moved on. You can see it doesn't even really give an error. It just says done. And now we are installing some updates. And once again, this is just going to be watching text scroll by on a command prompt, so I'll let you guys know when this step is done. All right, and a good sign that things are proceeding, we've got a Windows Update notification telling us we need to reboot. The script is also going to tell us to reboot at the end, and obviously we will wait until it's done installing things before we do that. All right, guys, and we are finally on update 12 of 12. I do have to say, I thought that had failed. We were stuck on update number 9 for maybe an hour. You can see the clock down in the bottom right. I did set the time zone during the setup, so that is accurate. It's actually about 8 minutes fast, that clock, for some reason, but we'll sync up with NTP later. Right now, I am really looking forward to this update being finished. We've got drive activity going. Okay, installation successful. Please reboot your system. Excellent. So that is finally done. That took a lot longer than it did on the virtual machine. So I am going to click restart now on that Windows Update prompt. And we should see an updating step here when we're shutting down, or else next time we boot. Yep, configuring updates. There we go. Yeah, and we've got the classic, we're at stage 1 of 3, so we're at 33%. Stage 2 of 3 is going to be 66%. And then stage 3 of 3 is 100%. They really break down that progress for you. Oh, here we go. That's a more helpful percentage. And we are shutting down. That did take a while. A lot of it was processing. I think it would have taken a lot longer if we did not have that SSD in there. Oh, and I forgot that was a restart, so I didn't have to swipe the power slider there. All right, loading up. We've got what seems like a mouse cursor flickering. Yeah, I can move it around, but it's still just flickering. All right, 100% complete. We're still seeing that on-screen keyboard on the login screen, which is strange. Is that an accessibility option that we can turn off?
Easier to use. Windows will read and scan this list automatically.
No? Well, we'll take a closer look at that later. Right now, I'm going to type in my password, and we are logged in. We'll just wait a second for everything to load up. There we go. So now that we have installed our initial updates offline, I am going to open up the actual Windows Update here. And we'll go ahead and click the Check for Updates button. This time it should actually work. All right, and we do have 3 important updates available, which are already selected. And one of those is our NVIDIA display driver. Cool. One of them is the dial-up modem in the machine. And then we've got HP remote control device. So maybe that's a driver for the remote control, even though this particular laptop did not come with one from the used seller I bought it from. Clearly it still supports the remote. Then under optional updates, we also have our wireless driver. We've got our networking controller. So there is a driver for that too. Synaptics. This is a Synaptics touchpad. And then we've also got our Windows Ultimate extras since we did install Windows Vista Ultimate. So we will select everything that is available and we'll click install. And that is going very quickly. Cool. All right, and it looks like some updates were not installed. Only one of them failed, so we'll go ahead and reboot, and then we'll see which one remains. Okay. And it looks like we do have our proper screen resolution now, which is excellent. One thing I liked about Vista more than current versions of Windows was the aesthetic of it. The Aurora background and the arrow curve. Let me put in my password here. All right. Cool, and now we can finish installing our modem software. Continue. Yeah, I don't actually think that any of this looks that bad. The bluish greens are a little bit more maybe bland than what people would expect today. It doesn't really pop off the screen, but it provides a backdrop, and if you actually take a moment and look at it, it does look pretty cool, I think. I mean, just all these lines and stuff. I like this abstract art better than the ugly, flat, stylized stuff that Microsoft ships today with Windows. All right, so we clearly have our video driver. I am going to open up Windows Update, restart your computer to install important updates. Okay, we'll restart again. All right, and we are up again. Okay, and we have no notifications. I do see in the bottom right in our system tray, we've got Synaptics now. We can turn tap to click on or off. For example, I've just turned it off. So now I would have to physically click the mechanical key in order to use the touchpad. I'll leave tap to click on for now. I am going to go to pointing device properties. And yes, I remember these settings. We're going to go to the Synaptics device settings, and I'm going to set the tray icon to the animated icon. So you can see down in the bottom right, just a tiny little bit, that this icon, it shows as blank when I'm not touching the touchpad. As soon as I start touching it, we get a little bit of green showing up on it, and it actually shows how hard you're pushing down too, which is cool. If I push down a little bit, we can start to see some yellow showing in the middle of the green. Oh, and it looks like there's a ton of stuff that we can actually configure with the touchpad now that that driver is installed. Touch sensitivity, the 2-finger scrolling that I mentioned before, 1-finger scrolling. Since the touchpad does have its own little right-hand column, this is set up to scroll just by using the right-hand column by default, or you can use 2 fingers on the rest of the touchpad also to scroll. Although that does not seem to be working right now in the tests here, while the right-hand scrolling does work for sure. All right, well, I'm going to leave that aside for a moment, and let's open up Windows Update again. Cool, so here's the optional update that failed before. Synaptics, So this is a software update. Let's see if that will install. Install. Creating a restore point before it installs this update. Okay. And that did fail. Interesting. What does it do if I click get help with this error? All right, this help page is literally telling me just to search the web for help. All right, according to a quick web search, that error message might just be saying that the version that Windows Update's trying to install is older than the one that's currently installed. Not sure why it's being offered to us. I can always hide it if I do want it to go away forever. Obviously, Windows Vista is not being updated anymore, so I would not expect to receive any more updates. It's end of life as of 2017. But at this point, we do have a fully up-to-date Windows Vista installation, and we can proceed to the next fun step of loading it up with some old software. All right, guys, so I did take a little bit of a break, but we are back now. It's a couple days later, and we are ready to install some software on this HP Pavilion laptop. Obviously, Windows Vista itself, it's pretty neat. I think the taskbar looks cool. This was the first time we had this glossy kind of pebble start button. I really love the aesthetic of the entire operating system. Let's turn on Arrow, though, because I don't see the glass effect. Or did Vista even have the glass effect? Was that new in Windows 7? Let's go to Personalization, Theme, Windows Vista. Oh, no, Windows Vista was just these solid windows. Interesting. Window color and appearance. Oh, here we go. Windows arrow. Apply. There we go. There's the glass. I knew Windows Vista had glass. So Windows XP, it looked kind of like a big Fisher-Price toy with all the blue plasticky looking windows. I personally do think that Vista looks really cool. Not as cool as Mac OS did with the metal thing they had going on for a while, but the glass still looks pretty classy in my opinion. All right, so we are going to open up Internet Explorer here, and I am going to check if we go to our menu bar and then we go to Help About Internet Explorer. This is IE 7, okay. So we don't have Internet Explorer 9 right now. All right, well, let's go ahead and upgrade to at least to Internet Explorer version 9, which is the newest version that Vista can run. I'm just going to go to bing.com and I'm going to search, since we're on the Microsoft train in this video, we'll search for Internet Explorer 9 64-bit, and we should get a result for Microsoft's website. I'll scroll down here with our sidebar and the touchpad. And okay, Windows Internet Explorer 9, you can see why I want to at least upgrade to IE 9 because IE 7 is not doing so hot in terms of displaying web pages. So if we can manage to scroll to our download button. All right, and I do see the information bar. We will download this file. Microsoft didn't even bother to whitelist their own website in their own web browser. Just training the users to always click on download anyway. So we will save this file. Cool, and we'll click run. And here is our user account control, one of the most hated features of Windows Vista. We'll click continue. Part of the problem was how slow. Did you see how long that took? Considering we're on an SSD and everything. User account control was not quick. Okay, so we will install IE9. We'll X out of IE7. While this is loading, I did take a look online and see if we could grab Windows Live Essentials, since that was obviously something that came with Windows Vista. Windows Live Essentials 2012 was the last version of Live Essentials that Microsoft ever made. And just before we restart here, I want to show you Windows Vista only supported up to Windows Live Essentials 2011, but that's okay because Windows Vista was the last version of Windows to actually come with some tools. It actually came with tools that were not present in Windows XP. They were brand new in Vista, and then they were removed immediately in Windows 7. Tools like Windows Mail. This was brand new. Windows XP had Outlook Express, which was kind of a stripped-down version of Microsoft Outlook, but Windows Vista had a brand new email program called Windows Mail, designed to compete with the Mail app on Macs. It did come with Windows Movie Maker. It was the last version of Windows to include Movie Maker. Windows 7, you had to install Windows Live Movie Maker if you wanted a Microsoft editing program. Windows Photo Gallery, Windows Journal. Vista just came with a lot of cool little utilities. The calendar. There was no dedicated calendar app in Windows XP, and there was no dedicated calendar app in Windows 7. Vista was the only version to even try to compete with iCal on Macs. And you know, we can take a look at the user interface in Vista. I know my channel talks about Linux a lot, and this is a very obviously non-Linux video. But we can look at the user interface that Vista was presenting, and you know, desktop environments and people developing software can kind of see what is a standard set of tools that users want to have. I mean, most desktop environments on Linux already kind of have that stuff on lockdown. The KDE project has a video editor, for instance, and Windows still does not really. But even just a simple calendar program, that's something Mac OS has. And it's something that other operating systems don't really have by default. They just assume, oh, if you want a calendar program, you'll find one and install one. But just having something really simple and good looking built in, there's some value in that. Here we go. I do wonder why it showed the mouse cursor. I don't think this is new. I'm pretty sure Windows Vista always showed the mouse cursor before the splash screen. But it doesn't really make sense. All right, we will log in. I'm telling you guys, this keyboard is so nostalgic. This flat keyboard. It's not a chiclet keyboard, and it's very different from any keyboard that I've used since I had this laptop. and it is so nostalgic just typing on this thing. It's fun. All right, well, here we are logged in again. So now I can see that the icon is updated down here. Here, let me zoom in so you can see that as well. The icon has updated to that slightly flatter icon that IE 9, I guess, introduced. I thought IE 10 brought the flatter icon. It might have modified it further. The Internet Explorer icon has certainly evolved a lot over the years. We'll use recommended settings just for fun. I would never do that on a computer I'm planning to use a lot. And this is not the logo or the icon that's showing on our system. InternetExplorerWelcome.com. Can we go to an older version of that same page? Oh, interesting. So you can go to InternetExplorerWelcome.com/IE7 to see. Oh no, 7 just shows you the IE10 start page. But IE8 does show you a specific Internet Explorer 8 design. If we type in IE9, we can see, oh, you know, I guess Internet Explorer 9 was, this is the version I was thinking of. This was a big change for Internet Explorer. You can see they ditched their multi-taskbar setup. This was the version where they did go and throw their tabs up next to the URL bar to save space. They made the back button larger than the forward button, just like Firefox used to have. So yeah, this was a really game-changing. Internet Explorer had been a joke for a long time, and version 9 at least made it a contender again in the browser wars. I am going to log in. Okay, so we're getting some certificate errors. The security certificate presented by this website, which is mycloud.nerdonthestreet.com, my Nextcloud instance, has expired or is not yet valid. So let's take a look at what this computer thinks our date and time is. The computer is about 7 minutes fast. The computer thinks that it's 2019. It thinks it's Tuesday, December 17th, 2019. I started this video in 2020, so this computer is living in last year right now. Let's go ahead and fix that. There is a reason for the screen flashing. There's a technical reason. When that screen flashes, the system it's kind of blocking and making sure that no applications are overlaying themselves over the user account control window. So it's basically taking a screenshot and then laying the user account control window over the screenshot. It's just taking a while to do that. Okay, cool. Now we can refresh our page. Looks like Nextcloud still doesn't load properly on IE9. Well, I'll just type in a link manually here to directly download my file. All right, so I do have a file downloading down there. While that's going, I want to take a look at our Windows sidebar over here. So Windows Vista introduced gadgets, and this was basically a direct competitor to widgets on the dashboard of macOS. macOS had a feature called Dashboard. I don't know if they still have it or not, but they definitely had it in Tiger, Leopard, Snow Leopard, Lion still had it. It did change a little bit over the years. But they had a dashboard that you opened up, and it basically, you couldn't use widgets at the same time as you were using Windows on your Mac. You would switch to your dashboard, and it would show you just a screen full of widgets. And so Microsoft, with gadgets, what they did was they obviously made it so that you could place gadgets anywhere on your desktop. And in Windows 7, every gadget or most gadgets have a little button you can click to make the gadget bigger or smaller. Windows Vista was not quite as configurable. The widget was either in small mode if it's in the sidebar or in big mode if it's anywhere else on the desktop. Now, if we added enough widgets here, we can have multiple pages in our Windows sidebar. So you could have had gadgets. You could have a ton of gadgets added without taking up a ton of screen real estate by having multiple pages in the sidebar. Windows 7 removed the sidebar entirely, so you're limited to your screen resolution in terms of how many gadgets you're adding. So the clock is obviously just a good, fun one to have. I am going to click the little... Here, let me zoom in on this. Just a bit. It's a 4K video, so you should have plenty of detail. I'm going to click the tiny little wrench icon there next to the clock. And I am going to check show the second hand. There are different... Oh, yes, there are different clock faces we can have. Which one is the coolest here? That's an interesting one. Let me see. Which one did I always use back in the day? I think I mostly used the default one here. This one looks pretty nice. This one's cool. I am going to leave the clock on the default face right now, and I'll click OK. Nice, and you can see that smooth animation after I was done adjusting my preferences there. I definitely also use the photo sliders. These are default photos we're cycling through right now. We're cycling through our sample pictures, but you could put the slideshow to any folder you wanted, and you could put how many seconds you wanted them to show for. And, that's something that I can see a lot of people using, parents having slideshows of their kids, or like I had a slideshow of my pets that was always going, just fun little stuff like that. And gadgets have been removed from Windows. They're not in Windows 10. They weren't in Windows 8 anymore. So you just can't have that stuff anymore. All right, so the CPU meter is one that I always had as well. I'm pretty sure I had this one off of the sidebar normally, but I'll put it in the sidebar since we've got the sidebar to play with. The CPU monitor, it's going to show us our CPU usage on this larger dial here, and it's going to show us our RAM usage on the smaller dial. Handy diagnostic stuff to have, the RAM especially, because a lot of people like me who tend to fill up their RAM on any system they're using, no matter how much RAM they have. I have to kind of watch my RAM usage and pay attention to how many things I have open at a time, and if I'm about to start a heavy task like editing a video, I might have to go and close a couple web browser windows or close something else before I start editing the video. So the RAM usage is super handy. The CPU is more just for fun, and that one moves around a lot more. Let's see here. So the picture puzzle is another one that I often had, and I never had any of the pictures showing on the picture puzzle. I always did the super plain. That's funny. We've got the Internet Explorer favorites icon as one. I was a wet towel, and I always just had the numbers showing. And I think I beat this game once or twice. You can see there's a tiny little timer in the top left, and this is such a time waster because this is always on your desktop, so you're trying to work, and then you see the puzzle going. As soon as we start and make a single move, this timer starts counting up, and it will time how many seconds, minutes, hours, and eventually days. Oh, there's a pause button? I just hovered over this tiny little clock, and I saw that it said pause timer. And then when we start working again, wow. All right, guys. So funny story. When I had this puzzle showing back when I owned this laptop, I would play this puzzle game basically when I didn't have any internet access. Because, I was a kid, so I got dragged around to places that my parents were taking me sometimes. And when there was no Wi-Fi, I would play this puzzle game. But I had this timer running basically all the time because I thought it was timing how many days or weeks or months it takes you to actually finish the entire puzzle for someone who's not particularly good at it. I can work the number 1 up to the beginning where it's supposed to go here. But yeah, I never even knew that you could pause the timer. I probably would have used that feature if I knew that. All right, so now the number 1 is where it's supposed to be. It gets more difficult as you go down the line. But yeah, even after all these years, this operating system's over a decade old, and I just learned something new about it. So that's pretty funny and pretty neat. I'm going to drag that down into our sidebar. I know it's out of the frame. And we'll just take a look at a couple more gadgets. So we've got a calendar gadget. You can see it is unfolded when it's out of the sidebar. If we drag it into the sidebar, it will fold up and only show the current date. But we can click on it to switch to the full calendar and use it that way. Or we can leave it elsewhere on our desktop completely unfolded. So I'm going to throw that down in my sidebar. And then the only other one I always used was the notes. Windows 7 had a sticky notes app. In fact, does Vista have a sticky notes app? Yes, it does. Windows Vista has a sticky notes app that you can open up and use to take notes and stuff. And you can write in this one using a pen or a stylus if you've got a touch screen. But then there was also the gadget that was a much simpler just text note-taking tool. And you can add new notes and cycle through them. And we've got some options here, which are basically just font and design options. I certainly did use these sticky notes. They don't save anywhere to any text files that I'm aware of that you can read. So I probably don't have any of my notes still saved anymore since I obviously don't have Vista anymore. Let's see. So how do I want to lay this out? I will just throw the notes here. Let me zoom back out to show the full screen again. I'm going to try and grab the notes, and I'm going to throw those at the bottom of our sidebar. So now you can see we can cycle through the different pages of the sidebar and have more gadgets on the screen without taking up a bunch of screen real estate. When I was using Windows Vista, I might be able to find a screenshot somewhere. I had gadgets everywhere. I installed additional gadgets, and if we click this Add button, and then we click the Get More Gadgets Online button, this is going to open up Microsoft's website. Gadgets have been discontinued, yeah. So we can't download anything anymore. I might be able to go back and find some gadgets stored that I had downloaded. And I actually, one of the first programming things I ever tried to get into was developing gadgets. Microsoft had these documentation pages on how to do that. It used web technologies, so like HTML and stuff. But it was a little too complicated for me at the time. I knew HTML. Actually, gadgets might not have been HTML now that I'm thinking about it. For one reason or another, I never did get into gadgets. I tried to develop them, but I never was able to do that. But yeah, I had app launching gadgets and things like that as well. I'm going to open up my home folder here, and Vista was the first version of Windows to have a home folder. Now, those of us on Linux, we know that home folders are a very important part of our operating system, right? All of your personal files go in your home folder, and you've got documents, downloads, pictures, videos. All of this stuff is standard on Linux today and has been for a long time. It's pretty standard on Mac as well, even though Apple's trying to obfuscate the file system, or abstract it at least. On Windows, before Windows Vista, all the way up until Windows 7, basically you had a My Documents folder, and your My Videos and My Pictures were within your My Documents folder. So the My Documents folder used to be sort of your home folder on Windows. Vista was the first version to actually split these up into their own individual folders, give them all different icons, these sleek blue icons. I think some of them did have their own icons in XP as well, but they were all contained within My Documents. Vista broke them out into an actual home folder, which of course has continued to this day in Windows 10. Vista was before the graphs. Windows 7, I believe, added those graphs that you could see to track the speed of how fast things were moving. I think it was added in 7 or 8, obviously still there in Windows 10. Vista, as you can see, they completely overhauled all the Windows animations. Windows always had animations for things like copying files, but they completely changed all of them. I mean, the animation stayed very similar between Windows 95, 98, 2000, even XP. XP put kind of a new skin on the windows, but things like the animations and icons still stayed very similar to what they were before. Vista, they really did, look at this glass panel just flying up and moving apart from itself. Somebody had to design that, and Microsoft spent years on all these little touches for Vista. You can see this animation, it ripples out all the way across the window. It's so much more artistic than what came before it. And of course, since I've kept the default desktop background, the color scheme ties together through all the different system components too. All right, and we are going to install now another staple of Windows, which is Microsoft Office. Now, I'm installing Microsoft Office 2007. I may have been able to get 2010 or a newer version on here, but 2007 I really associate with the Windows Vista era of things. If we open up our file manager again, Windows Explorer, you can see this little bit of a ribbon at the top of the window. Now, Windows 7 really expanded on the whole ribbon thing. This is not really a ribbon. This is still, as you can see when I click on buttons, we get drop-down menus, not a ribbon. But Vista still, it took away the classic file, edit, view, help, all of those kinds of menus. And it did away with the gray color scheme that Windows XP still used inside of its windows. And it gave us instead these glossy, larger, slightly larger at least, buttons that were then made even larger in Windows 7. So Microsoft Office 2007 was the first version to introduce the ribbon interface. Now, from a technical standpoint, that probably wasn't the biggest deal about Microsoft Office 2007. The biggest issue with it was its new file format. This was when Microsoft switched from their old proprietary binary format, which was optimized for speed. They switched to their new format, which is called OpenOffice XML, but it was still a very proprietary format. It was open in the sense that the specifications were published, but Microsoft did not work with any industry partners in trying to make sure that it was compatible with other solutions at all. They basically designed the spec for Microsoft Office, and then they published the spec saying, here's our specification, as opposed to the open document format that OpenOffice.org and later the Document Foundation pioneered. But Office 2007, on the skin of it, the biggest change was it moved away once again from the File, Edit, Tools, Help menus at the top of your screen, and it moved to the ribbon that we'll see in a minute here. And it is just fun to see that CPU monitor going up, and you can hear the fans in the laptop spinning up when it goes up, because obviously when the processor's working harder, it gets hotter, and then the fans spin faster. It's superfluous animation, but it's still fun. All right, so we are finished installing. We can go to Office Online to get product updates, and we'll actually check for product updates in a second through Windows Update. But for now, I'll click Close. And actually, let's make sure that everything's up to date before we do open it up. So if we go back into Windows Update, now we can see, okay, well, we've got some unrelated updates available. Some more Windows Ultimate extras that were not detected before. It does look like our Synaptic update that kept failing to install has just disappeared now, so that must have worked itself out. I am going to enable Microsoft Update here. I will click the Find Out More link. And Windows Update, in Windows XP and before, Windows Update was kind of a website, and it sort of hooked into the operating system, I think through an ActiveX extension or plugin. But Windows Vista put Windows Update into its own program. However, by default, you would only receive Windows updates through it. You would not receive updates for Microsoft Office or other Microsoft products. In order to do that, we need to agree to the terms of use for Microsoft Update, and we'll click Install. We'll get another super long and drawn out user account control item. We'll click Continue. All right. So now, after we check for updates, Windows Update should detect that we've got Microsoft Office installed, and it should offer those updates to us as well. All right, and we can see we do have 17 important updates available, and those would be our updates for Microsoft Office 2007. And then at the same time, we will go ahead and install our optional updates, and it looks like Office also pulled in Microsoft Silverlight, a web browser plugin for Windows and Mac OS X. Honestly, I didn't know they made Silverlight for Mac OS. If you would have asked me, I would have probably guessed that they did not. So we will go ahead and install all of those updates real quick. That is a very consistent pause. Okay, we've got to accept the Silverlight license terms. Okay, so now the updates will download and install, and it is still going fairly quickly, and I'm glad Microsoft is still hosting these updates on their Windows Update server, even though Vista is not technically supported anymore. All right, those are all finished, so we will restart once again. All right, so let's log in here, and as soon as we are in, here's that Windows Vista speed showing itself. All right, we can go ahead. There's our Welcome Center. Not going to turn it off because I specifically said I liked that. If we come down under All Programs, now we do have Microsoft Office 2007. I'm going to open up Word here to start with. And Office 2007, like I said, I mean, you could see on the splash screen there that the artwork is very similar to the rest of the Windows Vista art. So we want to search Office Online for help content. We don't need the other two. Click OK. That was actually a case of sane defaults right there is what you saw. That was an opt-in customer experience feedback program. Windows 10, that is completely opt-out. You can see how much Microsoft has changed over the last decade or so. So Office 2007 came out when I was in middle school, and most of the computers, actually all the computers when I was in middle school, in my school district were running Windows XP. Office 2007 stuck out like a sore thumb in Windows XP. It didn't have the regular Windows XP border. You can see that the top of this window is the normal Windows Vista glass. If you were to run Office 2007 on XP, which was perfectly possible to do, you would have a sort of blue top bar, but it wasn't the normal Windows XP blue. It was a special window border just for Office 2007 because it did not fit in with the Windows XP color scheme or style at all. Windows Vista, on the other hand, you can see how similar the Office button at the top left looks to the Windows logo in the bottom left. These are like the exact same pebble, just with a different logo inside. And this widget for text input with our tablet pen is getting kind of in the way, so I'm going to move it down there. We can come in here and we can go to our word options. And right here we can change our color scheme if we want from blue to silver. We can see what that looks like. That's pretty plain. It's more of a gray. Gray or silver is actually what I normally use now if I have to use the current version of Office, since they don't have as many colorful options anymore. And then there's also a black option that is very, very striking. I wouldn't exactly call it a dark mode, although, I mean, you could kind of call it that. I think black was what I preferred back in the day. And you can see the black color scheme for Office matches the taskbar of Windows Vista the best. All of this glossy stuff, I'm going to change this back to blue just because that's the classic theme. And this is what I'm most familiar with Office 2007, once again, because this is what it looked like at school for me, just with the top bar to match the rest of it. But all of this glossiness, like I said before, Windows today is very flat. Microsoft fell on the same design train as Google and Apple and a bunch of other companies have gotten on, where everything's just super flat. It's just plain colors, no gradients, very few shadows. It's very plain. And you can see here in this Office document, I mean, we've got just these little touches of character to the software. This is the kind of thing that you really need a video or at least photos to demonstrate. A video helps with the animations. A lot of people these days really like ribbons. I think that this is the best ribbon Microsoft ever made. The Office 2010 ribbon took this one and it just made it look less cool. The 2010 ribbon was an extremely similar layout, and I think they're still using a fairly similar layout in the most recent version of Office. It has been a good 6 months or so since I've used Microsoft Office. I have not touched it since I left my enterprise IT job to come and work at a Linux job at a smaller company. But even though people love the ribbon today and people complain that LibreOffice doesn't have the ribbon like Microsoft Office, they complain that it's outdated and harder to use and less nice looking. When Office 2007 came out, I can remember very clearly people hated this ribbon. They hated it with a passion. And it was funny because, kind of like GNOME 3, this is one of the things that I liked the first time I saw it. I got it. I really enjoyed the ribbon. I loved the very easy presets here. We can make a very nice looking document just with a few clicks here, with all of these preset styles the preset styles might have been in earlier versions of Office, but they were not this visual. You couldn't see what they were going to do before you applied them. And actually, I can type in here a heading, and if I highlight this heading, we can come up here and hover over the different options for previews of what they would look like. It's so dynamic. As a visual person who liked to make documents look really nice, when I was in school, I would always put a ton of work into the formatting and everything just to make things look super professional. And I loved how easy it was to do that with Office 2007. This was also the first version of Office to have a sans serif font by default. Previous versions of Office, the default font was Times New Roman, which we're all familiar with, and it should still be included here. Yes, right here, Times New Roman. And in earlier versions of Office, if you wanted a sans serif font, you could go and select Arial or something else. But Office 2007 introduced this new font, Calibri, and I am a super sans serif person in my fonts. If you look at my website, all the papers that I've written, just anything that I'm designing personally, I almost always use sans serif fonts everywhere, unless I'm really trying to go for a heavily stylized older look, then I'll use a serif font. And I've met some people who don't actually know what the difference between serif and sans serif is. So just real quick, a serif font such as this header here, it's got these little bits hanging off everywhere. It's got these tiny little, here, I'll use my stylus to point. It's got these tiny little hanging pieces off the top of the T and on the bottom of it there. The lowercase t is curved. It's very, very much emulating calligraphy, which I can see how people who are into calligraphy would prefer that. But for me, I was born in the digital age. I like technology. I know I was just talking about how I don't like minimalist design, but in terms of my fonts, at least, I like it simple. I like the font to get out of the way so that I can focus on the content. And so I really enjoyed the sans serif font that Office included by default starting with 2007. And it really has, I think it's made a big difference in enterprise environments because that's what Office defaults to. In an enterprise environment, unless you're in a creative role, you generally don't want to customize fonts and things too much. You want to keep it vanilla, keep it safe. So in older versions of Office, companies were just using serif fonts because it was the default. And then Office 2007 and forward allows people to use a sans serif font as the default. It's a small thing, but I really like it. 2007 also placed some more of these options up here for our font formatting. So bold, italicize, and underline have always been very prominent, but strike through the subscript and superscript, that kind of stuff, it really brought more to the forefront. So yeah, this was a very fun version of Office to use, and it's so nostalgic, really just seeing it. We can open up PowerPoint here, and that's got the ribbon too. We also see our glossy design elsewhere in the program. I don't know for sure if this was the first version of Microsoft Office that included a presentation mode for PowerPoint, but I'm just going to make a couple slides here. Office 2007, once again, made things a lot more visual. In PowerPoint, we can go to our slideshow, and we can set up our slideshow here, and we can set up a presenter view. And you can see that's not going to work here because my computer only has a single monitor right now. Oh, that was weird. Let me check that again. I'll click the check button, and we get a help article that PowerPoint 2007 is now retired. I don't care that it's retired. I'm still having fun using it. One other thing, though, that was new in 2007 were the animated transitions. So all of these 2D transitions have been in Office for a really long time. Office XP and Office 2003 had those. But if we scroll down... Oh, actually, I'm completely wrong. The 3D transitions were not added until Office 2010, and I do remember now that even though I had Office 2007 back on my laptop when I was using the laptop with Windows Vista and Windows 7. I also had Office 2010 simultaneously installed because I really enjoyed the 3D slide transitions in Office 2010. So yeah, we don't have those here, but we do at least have, we've got new word art. All these word art templates are brand new in Office 2007. And they are much more modern than the word art stuff that was in previous versions of Office. If we go to insert here, yeah, I don't even think the older word art stuff is in Office 2007 at all. So 2003 and before, they had word art, and they were these 2D sort of comic book looking bits of text, and they would have the words waving across the screen or starting small and getting bigger as they go across the screen. And the Office 2007 word arts, they were very tame in comparison. As you can see, all of the Office 2007 word arts, they were basically just heavily themed fonts. They did not have any geometry to them. They were really just different outlines and fillings and things like that. And on one hand, that's kind of a bummer because, it's more limited in what you can do. But on the other hand, we can go, and actually we can go here and we can manually, here we go. So these are some of the warping effects that we would have had with older versions of Office. Yeah, so stuff like this would have been word art before, and you can still go and do that manually, as you can see. It's just not the default because people people made fun of word art and said it was super cheesy and over the top. And so they toned down the defaults. But yeah, there is still more stuff you can do. And Office 2007 also made it a lot easier to customize and configure your word arts. We can change the color that this is filled in here. We can change the amount of glow that we have. Once again, all super visually. So that's really cool. And then Microsoft OneNote. Now, Microsoft OneNote, I do think it was included in some earlier versions of Office. but it really became a big thing that Microsoft was pushing as part of Office in Office 2007. And you can see here, OneNote was one of the programs that did not get the ribbon interface in 2007. I think OneNote 2010 has the ribbon. I know the current version has a ribbon. OneNote here is still using that weird sort of blue version of the file menu that we saw in the very previous version of Office, which I think was Office 2003 or Office XP, one of the two. I always forget which one came first out of those two and which one came second and had the weird theme. But OneNote, you can see, even though it had the file drop-down menu, it still kind of looks like it belongs with the other 2007 applications because we've still got tabs here. They're just not tabs for a ribbon, they're tabs for our notebooks. OneNote is an incredibly smart program. This is something that I wish LibreOffice would try to compete with. I know there are other programs, dedicated programs for GNU Linux for note-taking, but a lot of them are like markdown type stuff where you have to worry about typing in characters for your formatting. Programmers might like that. For people like me or students, I used OneNote a ton when I was a student, an absolute ton. When I was going into high school, my freshman year of high school was the first year that my high school handed out laptops for use in the classroom, and OneNote was on the laptops, and I used it every opportunity that I could. And it's so efficient because you can just click literally anywhere on the page and start typing. If you do type something and then you need to move it later, you can move things around by paragraph, as you can see. You can embed pictures and shapes and everything right in line. It's so flexible and so easy, and it's not meant for publishing. It's just meant for keeping track of notes yourself. And it's so good for that. If I'm typing notes here, here's the notebook background that I remember. If you're typing notes here, and then that you're going to want to put a picture in here later, but you don't have the picture yet, and you just want to skip a bit, you can do that here and just skip down farther in the page. You don't have to hit the Enter key a bunch of times like you would in LibreOffice Write or Microsoft Word. And then if you change your mind, you don't want a picture there, you can just click and drag. You don't have to highlight anything. You don't have to worry about deleting the empty space in between. It's much more like an actual notebook than a document processing program, but it's still more flexible than a notebook because it's electronic and digital. So it's just the perfect balance, in my opinion. I love Microsoft OneNote, and I do wish there was a LibreOffice version of it, because I would probably be more inclined, honestly, to carry a laptop around with me if there was a OneNote competitor in LibreOffice. If I want to pull out my laptop and start taking notes on something, right now I would probably open KWrite, which is just a plain text editor similar to Notepad, and that has no formatting at all, but that's normally what I open up if I need to take notes, or I'll open up Standard Notes if it's going to be something that I want synced between all my devices. I tend to use KWrite for short-term stuff and Standard Notes for things that I think I might want to save for longer than a day, but neither of those have the flexibility of this program. And once again, with a tablet, it was even better because you could actually write. This isn't working because I'm reaching across my desk right now and I don't have the laptop in tablet mode, but I can twist this thing around here and we can move our camera down a bit. And I can just write notes right here. How cool is that? This is a stylus and this is a touchscreen, and this was before the iPad was released. Keep that in mind. This seems really rudimentary today, but this was before the iPad was released. Microsoft had OneNote, HP came out with a touchscreen laptop, the stars all aligned, and you had a really good system for note-taking, and you could hand write notes, and you could draw. And if I flip this around, OneNote's one of the programs that actually did support the eraser as well. So that's awesome. And I do remember that I absolutely used the pen a lot in OneNote when I had my HP Pavilion laptop. So that is very fun. You can see it's upside down now because the laptop, I don't think that it detected automatically that I rotated the screen. The HP drivers might do that once we add those. But OneNote is very cool, and then it saves automatically. Because you want a note-taking program. Standard Notes does that as well, but OneNote, it saves as you go automatically. You don't have to worry about pressing Control-S every 2 seconds or risking losing work. Once again, just like a notebook, you don't have to save a notebook, and you don't have to save OneNote either. So that's awesome. So I'm having a really good time with this. The next thing I want to do is hop on the internet real quick, and I want to see if there are some drivers we can add before we take a look at some of the other programs here. And then of course there are some games and things I want to install later as well. All right guys, and I do have the drivers for this laptop downloaded, so I'll go ahead and open up this zip file and we will extract that. Now, I actually discovered something pretty neat. If we take a look at the bottom of this laptop, let me zoom out a little bit here. I know this is extracting and processing, but we've got an SSD in this thing, so it's okay. I'm just gonna close the laptop for a second, and if we flip this over so we can read the sticker on the bottom, take a look here. I completely missed this earlier. Like I said, the sticker does say HP Pavilion TX2000, but it does have the specific model number underneath it. This is a TX 2032LA. So that is the full model number. Now I did look up the drivers for this model number, and the drivers are the exact same as the configure to order TX2000 drivers. So the model number doesn't really help us at all, but it is cool to know, since I did mention several times earlier that I wasn't sure what the true model number of this laptop actually is. So now that we know that, we can be a little bit more confident in installing our drivers here. And like I said before, HP does not host the pages to download the drivers for this model anymore. However, I found another website that's probably the closest thing to a legitimate download for the drivers that you can find. The website is called hpnotebookdrivers.com, and it looks super sketchy. It looks just like any other third-party driver download website, but the links are actually hot linking to HP's FTP server. So you're downloading the files from HP. You're just getting it indexed by a third-party website. Since HP, for whatever reason, it's not like they're saving a bunch of storage space. You know, they're still hosting the files, but they've just taken down the front-end pages that list the files. So I'm glad a community website or a third-party website has stepped up to take care of that. And I do have 34 files downloaded here. There were 2 files listed that were not hosted on HP's FTP server anymore. They forwarded out. And I created this text document on my Linux computer. I forgot that Windows Notepad did not support Unix new line characters for a very long time. I'm pretty sure they've patched it in Windows 10 to display those files properly, but let me see. Can I open up this .text document in... Well, here we go. WordPad does it just fine. All right, so which drivers do we want to install? I don't want to install all of these drivers. For one thing, I know we already grabbed some drivers from Windows Update, and things like the graphics and the networking seem to be working just fine right now. Speaking of networking, I have not connected to Wi-Fi yet. If we click connect to a network, okay, cool, so Wi-Fi does work. Windows Vista was before they moved the Wi-Fi list down to your taskbar. In Windows 7, you would click this icon down here, and you would actually see a list of networks to connect to. Windows Vista, you needed to go through the wizard in its own window. But my networks are listed here, so networking seems to be fine. We don't need graphics drivers. And things like our, HP USB digital analog TV tuner. I don't own that accessory, so there's not really a reason to install that one. But I do want to have the full functionality of the laptop. We've got a couple of options for drivers for our HP quick launch buttons. I assume they're just different versions. And the quick launch buttons would be these right here. So obviously we've got a rotation button that we can push, and it's supposed to rotate the screen, but you can see it's not doing anything right now. This DVD button is supposed to open up, I think, Windows Media Center. Do we have Windows Media Center? HP had their own quick play application as well that shipped with this thing, and I don't know if that's included or not in the driver downloads. Basically, this is not going to be a stock HP installation. The recovery partition was gone. There was no way to get that. So with that in mind, we're going to enjoy having a less bloated Windows Vista installation, and we'll install only the things that we need to really take advantage of all the features on this laptop. Here we go, Windows Media Center is installed. So we'll take a look at that after we get the quick launch buttons working. I think the first thing that we'll install is CyberLink YouCam software. This was a program that came with my HP Pavilion. You can see there are 2 versions of it available for this model. I'm going to go with the newer version because that's, I believe, what was installed on my laptop was CyberLink YouCam 2. And it's just a fun little photo booth application. So that is file number 23. HP helpfully labels all these files with, I mean, it's not a bad system. They've got these unique IDs. So this driver is SP42568. But of course, that doesn't really tell us anything without the index, which I copy and pasted from that website. So we'll click continue here. I ended up using quite a bit of CyberLink software back in the day. I used the YouCam software, obviously, since it came with my laptop. I also used CyberLink Power Director to make a lot of video slideshows. Not really videos in the sense of the videos that I make today, but animated picture slideshows with fancy transitions. I made a little bit of money doing that when I was in middle school. So we will continue through our install shield wizard here. And then I also used CyberLink Power DVD, I believe, to laser etch my LightScribe discs. And we'll see if we can grab that later. You can see this is a 32-bit application we're installing right now. The website that I downloaded the drivers from, it had a driver download list for 64-bit Vista and one for 32-bit Vista, and I downloaded the 64-bit Vista drivers, but some of the programs were only ever written for 32-bit. Vista was still kind of the transition from 32-bit to 64-bit, at least for Windows. Windows XP never really supported 64-bit. There was a specific version of Windows XP called Windows XP. It might have just been Windows XP 64-bit or something, but it wasn't really the same operating system. It was a completely separate spin. Windows Vista was the first version of Windows to actually have parallel 32 and 64-bit support. So a lot of developers still stuck with 32-bit for a while. So we've got our README file for YouCam. I don't actually need the README file. Let's open it up. So we'll go to CyberLink YouCam. I recognize that icon, so that's a good sign. And here we go. You can see the kind of aesthetic they were going for. Here, let me minimize our driver list. And there's the webcam working. Cool. Let's see. Please select a tutorial below to begin. Initial webcam setup. Let's go through a tutorial and see what this is like. And you can see this was, like I said, it was a webcam booth application. So Apple had a photo booth on their Macs. And so Windows didn't have anything like that built in. Photo booth was just for taking pictures and videos. Please consult the help for the instant messaging software you are using. Wow, that is an incredibly... Oh, okay. I was going to say that's not a very useful tutorial. This is a flash video playing right now showing us how to set up our webcam in Windows Live Messenger. I'm going to X out of that. And here is CyberLink YouCam. We can't make the window any bigger. There's no maximize button. But yeah, I'm glad the webcam at least works in this thing. And you can see all these cheesy... So like Photo Booth on Macs had cool features like the built-in green screen feature where you didn't even need a green screen. You would step out of the frame. I don't think that this... software has that. No, it does not have that capability. In Photo Booth, you could step out of the frame, it would take a still image of your webcam, and then it would use that as a chroma key. So when you stepped back into the frame, then you could put backgrounds on yourself. CyberLink YouCam, in comparison, it just has all these stupid, cheesy little animations, and they're all ridiculous. I don't know why you would ever need or want to use any of these. I actually went through a lot of work. You can see you can download more emotion effects from CyberLink. I figured out how to make my own and overlay my own pictures in this software, which nowadays you can do that super easily with a variety of programs. You know, for videos, you can do that with OBS in 2 seconds. But back in the day, Webcam Max was a third-party program that I ended up using later. But CyberLink YouCam was the first one that I had because it was built into the laptop, obviously. I recorded web shows in this program, and I would upload them to my very first website. You can see we can start capturing video here, and it should be capturing video and audio. We'll click stop, and then we can double-click on it here. We can play it back. Oh, and there's no audio in that one. You can see it captures in .wmv. I know that we've got sound. Well, clicking that sound meter isn't really giving us any sound output, but we can see here, if I click play and come back to our sound meter, so Windows does not detect any... Oh, maybe it does detect a tiny little bit of output. I'll have to play with that. But yeah, you can take videos and you can take pictures. And there's just a super over-the-top sound effect for it. We can draw on top of the frame. It's just, this was the coolest stuff back in the day. So we can X out of that and move on to the next one. I need to open up my home folder, Jacob. Here we go. Can we favorite our home folder? Because you can see the favorite links. And I did not like in Windows 7 when they added the libraries thing. I was unclear on what libraries in Windows 7 really were for a long time, and I wish they had just kept regular folders and links to the folders like they had in Vista. But how do I add, let me see, right-click on Jacob. No. I want to add my home folder to the sidebar of the window. So for that, let me go to Computer, Local Disk, Users. Okay, so Jacob, I'm going to right-click. Or what if I just click and drag it over? Here we go. So now we've got Jacob as a favorites link. I'm also going to drag my downloads over here. Okay. All right, so what's the next thing we want to install? Seeing YouCam again definitely put a smile on my face. Let's get the fingerprint sensor working. So for that, we're going to have number 25, Digital Persona Fingerprint Software for Microsoft Windows Vista. And by the way, if we go into our device manager, we can also check there if there's anything that we're particularly missing drivers for. After user account control, that is. All right, so underneath other devices, so you can see the fingerprint sensor. It is not detected right now. The drivers for this device are not installed. The only other thing we don't have drivers for is something called coprocessor. If we go to our details, can we see any more information about that? We've got the PCI bus that it's on, which doesn't really help me. All right, well, I'll have to see if I can figure out what coprocessor is supposed to be. We've got a chipset driver and things like that here. So we might have to install the Authentic fingerprint driver, but first I'm just going to try installing the Digital Persona fingerprint software, and we'll see if that includes the driver, if it picks up the fingerprint reader. So that's number 25. Let's open that up. We'll click continue. All right. You can see this version of the Digital Persona software added Firefox version 2.x and 3.0 support so that you could sign into websites in Firefox and not just in Internet Explorer using your fingerprint sensor. Here's a much more standard looking install shield wizard. Cool. All right, the system cannot verify that the fingerprint reader is installed. To set up the fingerprint reader on your system, install the driver from the application and driver recovery disk, which I don't have. Okay, so you must restart your system for the changes to take effect. We'll click no for now because we need to install that driver, it sounds like. So for the fingerprint sensor driver, we've got Authentic fingerprint driver 7.10, and we've got 7.9 as well. So we'll install the newer version. That's file number 9 in here. I'll double click. All right, and looks like this version of the driver improves device stability for Vista Service Pack 1. No prerequisites. And this is copyright 2003 by HP, which I know it was created after that because Windows XP was 2003. Vista was later. All right, that is complete. Cool, so now let's go ahead and reboot. I'll save that file, even though I didn't make any changes to it, so I can read it easier on the next reboot. All right, and let's see if anything's different here. Yep, we've got how do I use fingerprints? Click here to enroll fingerprints. I don't think this is gonna work since we're not logged in. Oh, it does work. Okay, so we're here on our login screen and we can click next. So type your Windows password to verify your identity. Okay, I'll type that. Next. All right, so you can see their example video shows a fingerprint reader down on the palm rest of a computer because that's much more sensible for where to put a fingerprint reader than the side of a display. To get feedback on proper technique, swipe your finger several times. So I'm going to, let me see, what's going to look best on video here. I'm going to go with my left thumb again, and let me try swiping. Unsuccessful. Unsuccessful. How about this way? There we go, successful. There we go. To start fingerprint enrollment, click Next. Yes, and so this is the same software that was on the other laptop. We'll click fingerprint enrollment for our left thumb. And there's that sound that I've heard so many times because that plays every time there's a successful scan. Finish. Okay, so we'll click Switch User. Now you can see that my user account icon has a little fingerprint in the corner. And now if I swipe my fingerprint, we get one sound to indicate a successful scan, and then a second sound to indicate a login. So fingerprint reader is working, which is cool. Like I said, it's all these little bells and whistles that made this laptop what it was back in the day. Windows Defender is complaining that it's out of date, so let's go ahead and let it update that. And then we don't have any virus protection either, so I'll grab something. There are no new definitions available to download for Windows Defender. Okay, well, your only options are go online to get a different anti-spyware program, or I have one that I'll monitor myself. Those are your only two options. I don't even know if I want to really add outdated antivirus software to this machine. It's just going to slow it down, and for the most part, I'm not going to be doing general web browsing on this computer. Whenever I turn this thing on, it's going to be to look at something very specific, like an application or something. So if we head into our driver folder again, what else do we have here? I'm not sure what these essential system updates and things like that really are. HP Recovery Partition Remover for Microsoft Windows Backup, HP Recovery Manager Installer. And see, like HP Help and Support, I've definitely seen that program. I don't know if the nostalgia for that is worth having that bloat on the computer, but I've got it all here if I ever do want to install it. I think the only other real thing we would need to install is the LightScribe host software. Now, if we open up our start menu and just search for LightScribe, we don't get any results. So we'll see if that changes after this is done. And by the way, if we go into Device Manager, I am curious if that coprocessor is still showing up as, yes, we still have a coprocessor that does not have a driver. That is still a mystery for the time being, but we'll install our LightScribe host software. I don't think that's what the coprocessor is, but I want LightScribe to work. All right, I accept the terms. And I actually do have plenty. I actually purchased a large number. When LightScribe was discontinued, I went onto Newegg and I got 3 spindles of like 80 LightScribe DVDs because back then I was using LightScribe for displaced DVDs. Nowadays, the displaced DVDs are professionally printed with artwork, full color artwork. But in 2014, which was years after I had stopped using my HP Pavilion, I had installed a LightScribe drive in my desktop computer, and I was using that to create displaced DVDs that I was selling. Okay, it looks like that setup is done. So yeah, I definitely have a good number of LightScribe discs left over. So should I ever want to use LightScribe, I can do it here. This is a LightScribe control panel. You can see, you can make the labels darker. It basically just etches it longer in the same place. It shines the laser on it longer. And I'd like that. It just makes it take a little while longer, which is fine. Yes, and now we have our LightScribe software showing up in our system tray in the bottom right as well. In Windows Vista was the last version of Windows that the system tray expanded out left to right like this, instead of popping up a new sort of window, which I do like. I'm actually going to go into my properties for the taskbar and uncheck the hide inactive icons option though, so that they're all there all the time. Cool, so we can see our LightScribe drive is detected. What happens if I click download update? It just opens up a dead website for lightscribe.com, which HP has taken offline. So we still don't have any software we can actually use to make LightScribe labels. Oh, what's this software manager here? Let me click on software manager and find out what that is. Okay, so this was an HP, well, it's not a tool made by HP. You can see it says copyright Macrovision Europe Limited. But this was used to update the HP components on the machine. It's sort of like Windows Update, but just for the HP stuff. There are no available updates for this computer, probably because I'm installing everything fresh. But yeah, I don't see the LightScribe, LightScribe Direct Disk Labeling. No. All we've got is a getting started application and the control panel. We don't have any applications we can use to actually make labels. So you can see they list a few compatible applications here. Sonic Express Labeler, Nero Cover Designer, Roxio Easy Media Creator. But I had CyberLink Power DVD back in the day. I can probably go back and find files for that. Alright guys, and I have found a copy of the CyberLink DVD suite. I was wrong, it's not Power DVD that I use to label the discs, that's only for playing DVDs. And that's what I was talking about earlier when I mentioned the program that opened up when you push that DVD button. LabelPrint is the program used for LightScribe labeling, and I am currently transferring a zip archive of those files to my cloud so that I can download them on the laptop. Alright guys, so here we do have the CyberLink DVD suite finished downloading. We'll go ahead and extract that. I'm glad I had this downloaded. I actually do have a complete partition backup of the HP recovery partition, but that recovery partition was for my TX 2510 US for one thing, and not this model. And for another thing, that partition, the backup was created using EaseUS to-do backup free, like I may have mentioned earlier in the video. And so I would need to install EaseUS in order to recover anything from the partition. I might try that later for one little game-related thing, but I do want to stick to downloaded files over recovery partition files as long as we can here. All right, so let's go into the CyberLink DVD suite folder and we'll run setup, continue. All right, welcome to the Install Shield Wizard. It's the same darker theme that they used for the YouCam software. So we'll click yes, and username, Jacob Kaufman, and company name, we'll put Nerd on the Street, Productions, LLC. Next. Next. All right. So now you can see it's installing the individual applications. So LabelPrint, like I said, is the one that you use to print out labels. If you've got LightScribe, it works with that, but it can also be used with printers if you've got a printer that can print out stick-on CD and DVD labels. And now we're installing Power2Go. If I remember correctly, Power2Go is the one that you use to actually burn DVDs, so setting up DVD menus and things like that. And now we've got CyberLink Power Director, of course, the video editing program. And finally, we're installing Power Starter, which is sort of just a launcher for all the applications. All right, and that is complete. So we'll click Finish, and still getting SSD activity. I'll give it a second to wind down, as if an SSD spins up and down. So we will open up our programs here, and now we've got CyberLink DVD Suite. Nice. So LabelPrint is the program I was referring to before, so we'll open that up. And asking me to register. Might as well. I doubt the registration servers are still online for this version. But I'll click register now. Oh, I've successfully registered, huh? All right, so this is LabelPrint. So the only option that I ever used was LightScribe because I was using LightScribe Media. You can set up your disk information, and then here is where you can design your LightScribe label. And it's possible to go in here and just kind of make a layout. And I think actually I need to go back and say like my DVD, author Jacob. So if we go next now, yeah, you can see it's got the information that we put in. But then what I normally just did was I would open up, I think I probably used GIMP back in the day. By the time I got to Displaced on my desktop, I was using Inkscape to design the labels. Oh, here we go. No, I think I just did this. So yeah, linear text. I'll click OK. Yeah, this is how I designed my disk labels. I would really just come in here and create a blank layout, and I would use the built-in tools here. And you can adjust the fonts and everything, and the size. And you could put pictures in here too. So here's a couple examples of disks that I actually made on my HP Pavilion back in the day using this exact software. Here's one I made with Fedora 15 on it, and I burned this using my Windows partition because I never got LightScribe working on Linux with my laptop. So you can see I had Fedora 15, I had their logo, I had the Red Hat logo, and I put links to Red Hat and Fedora's websites. Fedora's actually changed their primary URL these days. Now it's getfedora.org, but back then it was fedoraproject.org. You can see that the labels are starting to kind of fade, and I don't remember if I used the enhanced mode for these or not, but they do fade over time. But yeah, that is very cool. You can see I use the exact curved text tools that I'm showing you right now, and then imported some images. Here's another one that I made that was Linux Mint. And so once again, you could see I liked to put the logos on there. And in this one, I listed a bunch of information about the disk. So without even having to put this in a computer, I can see it's Linux Mint version 11. It was shipping GNOME 2 at the time. It's a live CD, so you can try before you install. I wrote that it's based on Ubuntu, and I put linuxmint.com on there. And this one is a 32-bit disk, according to what I wrote. So yeah, LightScribe I think was incredibly cool. This is much nicer than Sharpie writing, because I've got plenty of those too. I've got a Fedora 17 beta disk here looking through my spindle of old disks that I do have here. But LightScribe, it was more professional by default, and it looked nicer. You don't have to worry about handwriting, or you don't have to worry about the Sharpie drawing or smudging off as much. So it was a very, very cool program, and I used label print to do all of that. And then if we click the DVD button here, yeah, no, nothing happens yet. So let's go ahead and install our HP Quick Launch Buttons driver. I've got 2 of them here. I'll check the file names, but I believe the first one is the more recent version. Let's see. So the 2 files for Quick Launch are number 8, which is SP40139, and number 12, which is SP38171. So yeah, number 8 has the higher file number. So we'll install that one. Good. If upgrading from an older version, please uninstall older version before installing this version. So we'll go ahead and click Next, and we'll install our Quick Launch Buttons driver. Next. All right, and we'll restart the computer, and we'll see if this starts working. All right, and we do see that our keyboard has gone away. I think Windows Vista, whenever you only had a single user, it just showed you an on-screen keyboard since it's not using the rest of the space anyway. As soon as you add a second user, or in our case, this is a second user, but it's really just the fingerprint indicator, then that on-screen keyboard goes away. And that's why I didn't remember that on-screen keyboard at all, because the computer came with the fingerprint software pre-installed. I always had more than one user. But we can go ahead and swipe our fingerprint. And here's our double sound effect. All right, and by the way, I'm gonna wait for everything to load up here. All right, so everything seems to be loaded. Our SSD's indicator light is, well, I thought it was calming down. Now it's just solid again. There we go. I am going to hit Windows L to lock the screen, and that still does take a good minute, doesn't it? But I wanna just demonstrate the fingerprint reader normally is a little bit faster. There we go. That's the sound I remembered. It just played both of the sound effects at the same time. It was really quite silly that there were 2 separate sound effects that played, because as you just heard, I mean, you're always going to have one and then the other whenever you sign in. So that's what I was used to. And I recognize that sound more because I normally had the computer turned on and I just locked it when I wasn't using it. All right, so now that we've got the quick launch buttons installed, if I click the DVD button, oh, we still don't get anything happening. How about if I click the rotation button? Okay, that one at least works. So when the device is in tablet mode, the idea here is the machine did not have an accelerometer or a gyroscope, and you can actually see that the display automatically flipped itself 180 degrees when I swiveled the screen, which is what you want, because now this is the direction that you're holding it and looking at it in. But let's say that I'm holding the laptop or the quote-unquote tablet, and I want to turn it sideways. Like I said, there's no accelerometer, so what you have to do is you have to hit that rotation button a couple of times until we get around to the orientation that you want it. So even though these buttons seem kind of clunky, they're there for a good reason. They're adding kind of critical functionality for a tablet. And then this portrait mode for the tablet, this is how I would imagine myself using a tablet like this the most. Let me find my pen. I'm going to unplug this here so I don't break the cord off trying to show you this. And if I open up Windows Journal here, do you want to install the Windows Journal Note Writer print driver? Let's install, sure. Allow. Another cool thing about the fingerprint sensor is that I can now log in or enter passwords without having to type with an on-screen keyboard, just by using the fingerprint reader, which is easier. You can see it at the top there. I'm starting to struggle with this camera angle since I'm recording in landscape. All right. So now in Windows Journal here, which is a cool little program, I can start writing my journal. And that's very bad handwriting because I'm holding this upright right now. But if I set the laptop down, now I can go and I can really just, since this is not a super sensitive touchscreen, like I said earlier, I can almost just put my hand on top of it and it knows where the stylus is and I can write right on the lines as if this is a notebook. This is really, it's such a well thought out tablet experience, all things considered. Obviously it's very old. Obviously it's not the most accurate thing in the world. But the people who were designing this all those years ago, you can tell they really expected people to jump onto this technology and to use it day to day. And the fact that, obviously people didn't start using these day to day. People still use regular notebooks more than swivel screen computers with styluses. It's funny and very interesting. So we're going to flip this thing back to its normal orientation. And the last thing that I want to do in this video is install a couple of old games on here. Now, one of the things that is missing from this laptop right now is the HP games that were pre-configured on it. In fact, if we go to the games section in Vista here, we've got our standard Windows stuff. We've got FreeCell, we've got Spider Solitaire, which is my favorite version of Solitaire, Minesweeper, Purple Place, which was a new one with Vista, I believe. Vista came with Chess Titans. If you remember, Mac OS has come with chess for a long time, and Windows did not have chess for a very long time. And so with Vista, Microsoft was going all out with the 3D effects, and so they wrote this ridiculously complex 3D chess game. And you can play it single player or two player. It's got sound effects in it, so that's fun. It was very much called out by a lot of YouTubers at the time as being one of the other things that Microsoft copied from Mac OS with Windows Vista, along with the gadgets and a lot of other stuff. And the search in the start menu was quote-unquote copying Spotlight search back in the day. And then there's Inkball, which is one of my favorite games that has come with Windows. And this was not in Windows XP, I don't believe, or it might have been in XP on certain tablet computers. But it was not standard with Windows XP, and it was, I think, standard with Windows Vista, although it was removed from Windows 7, and I don't know why, because it's a really good game. It works best if you're using a pen, and you basically have to draw lines to make these balls bounce into the goal, like that. This is a really fun game. I don't remember how far I ever got in this. Yeah, and then there's color-coded ones, and you have to kind of angle draw your lines so that the balls bounce the proper directions to get into their goals. So that's a fun one. However, this is an HP laptop and it came with the My HP Games Center as well. Now, of course, HP was not writing their own games. Like several other OEMs, Dell did this as well. HP included a game center that was basically a rebrand of the Wild Tangent games. And anyone who owned a computer with an OEM installation of Windows in the time period of 5 to 10 years ago, or really 5 to 15 years ago, is going to sort of remember some of these games. Now, I did take a look at my recovery partition image that I took many years ago, and I was not able to locate any installer files, which I was hoping I would be able to find the installers for some of the HP OEM software in there. I'm not sure if I have the data, but it's just not saved in exe files like I was expecting it to be, or maybe that image wasn't good. It's not like I ever have restored that image successfully, really. I just grabbed a partition image of the recovery partition on my Pavilion before I deleted it. So we don't have the original My HP Games installer. Here's what I was able to find online. Dell still has a link to download their version of the Wild Tangent Games app. And that points to a download on Wild Tangent's website. Now, I tried changing the URL from Dell to HP because it was a pretty simple URL, but that just downloaded a generic Wild Games installer. Now, we can see this is file version 4.1.1.49. Now, I also downloaded, 4.1.1.49. Okay, so we really don't have any older version of the Wild Tangent stuff. This client that we're about to try installing, it is going to be newer than what would have come with this laptop. So I just double clicked on that installer. I'm actually going to cancel out of it and we'll try using this HP version. That's what currently comes on HP computers that have Wild Tangent bundled. Now, the problem with the current version, I'm not sure if that's actually going to open up. The problem with the current version of the Wild Tangent games is that they only support Windows 7 and up, and so I'm not sure if they're even going to run it all here under Vista. All right, so I might have to go digging. I thought that I had two different versions. I thought I had an older version and a newer version, so I had a plan to try them both. But since they do report as the same file version, I am going to go ahead and do some more digging online to try and find that. All right, guys, I think I found a version that works here. I don't blame Wild Tangent for not having a Vista compatible version of their client right now because Windows Vista has been into support since 2017. Windows 7 should be end of support in about 10 days here, so it'll be interesting to see how long Wild Tangent continues supporting Windows 7 after its end of support. However, I did grab, so 4.1.1.48 was a slightly older version than the 4.1.1.49 that I had before. But it does not open up on this computer. However, 4.0.34.25 does seem to open. So we'll try installing this one. This was from a third-party website. However, it looks like the publisher is still Wild Tangent Inc. Not that that means anything. Hopefully I'm not installing malware on the system right now. If I am, it's not like I'm using the system anyway. So we'll click agree here. I did look online for quite a bit trying to find the HP branded version of this. People said that the files are present on the HP recovery disk, and I've even got a set of recovery CDs that I made. It's a set of a good 20 or 30 CDs from my HP Pavilion 2500, but once again, those are in St. Louis, not here in Denver. And then also, I know that I don't have all 20 discs in the same place anymore. There were a couple of them that I moved. Oh, there was an unexpected error during installation, error 3-1. Darn. Oh, well, thank you for installing this product. So is it installed or is it not installed? It doesn't seem like it is. So I don't think the application has been installed. However, we definitely copied some files. Well, I don't see anything in our program files for Wild Tangent. All right, so back to the drawing board. I've got to keep looking for a compatible version. All right, guys, I'm going to take a different approach. I have been looking online. It's interesting. You know, there are a lot of websites out there whose purpose is to host old versions of software. But for stuff like Wild Tangent launchers, there's not a lot of reason for people to really care too much about preserving it. All right, this isn't going to work either. I went ahead and downloaded the installer for the specific game, or one of the specific games I'm trying to install right now, which is Otto's Magic Blocks. You guys will see the game later when I finally get this working, but right now, so I downloaded the game. Their website says that it supports Vista. System requirements, I'm reading off of my other computer. It says Windows 8, Windows 7, Vista, and XP. But when I clicked download, what downloaded was this file, which I thought it was a different file. But if I hover over it in Windows, Windows sees the file version as 4.1.1.49, which is exactly the same as their current client. So it just wants me to install their launcher, which does not support Windows Vista. However, since I've now at least purchased a game from them that the page says supports Windows Vista, now at least I can bring this to their support and say, hey, you guys advertised this works with Vista. How do I get this working on Vista? Because I'm getting tired of trawling through old blog posts looking for download links for older versions of this software. All right, guys, so I have not yet found a version of the Wild Tangent launcher that will install on Vista. You can see I installed Opera on this system because Opera still supports Vista, or at least it was the last browser to still be supporting Vista. Now, I did hit the jackpot going through my old files, and I found a folder called SW Setup, Software Setup, and it contains, I think, all of the software from the recovery partition of my old HP laptop. Now, it does not include HP Games, but it does include HP Update. And it also includes some other stuff that I had forgotten about, like Microsoft Works, and I think I will install that in a bit. But I did see there was one HP Update package that we had downloaded from HP's website, and I'm trying to stick with things from HP's website, once again, over the recovery partition, since this is a different laptop than the one that I had under the hood. So this is download number 22. I want to try and install HP Update and see if that will install HP Games for us. So let's see if this will install HP Update or if this is just an update for it. Oh, it looks like it is, well, security update for HP Software Update, so I'm really not sure if this is going to do anything or not. That just closed. We do have a software manager installed here that I think I saw earlier, and it tells us that everything's up to date, but no, this is an HP Update. All right, so I've zipped up a couple of folders from the old recovery partition files. And even though it's a shame, I finally have a web browser that could probably successfully load Nextcloud on here. Because even though Opera is a little out of date, it's not as out of date as IE9. My cloud is actually running out of space. It's just on a DigitalOcean droplet right now. So I'm just going to have to create a shared folder real quick, which is very easy to do in Vista. I'm going to share this folder with everyone on my network. Continue. And we will go ahead and turn on network discovery. This laptop is basically going to be air-gapped. If I do ever take this laptop anywhere, I'm never connecting it to any Wi-Fi network or anything because, you know, Vista, not secure, especially not 3 years after it was discontinued by Microsoft. But let me take a look and actually, what was the share name again? Network path not shared. Well, let's try that again. Share. Your folder is shared. Why does it still say not shared under sharing? Oh, I didn't click the add button for one thing. Okay, let's just try navigating here. All right, and I was able to successfully connect. As you can see, we are now transferring a file here over my network from my Linux desktop. Just for the record here, guys, while this is downloading, obviously I've had to resort to some corners of the internet to find some of the software that I've already shown you. I actually did purchase Otto's Magic Blocks on Wild Tangent's website a little while ago, like I told you I did. So I've paid them $2.99 for that. It's extremely cheap. That's why I'm just, doing it for fun here. However, since I've already purchased it and I'm struggling to get it to run, I did search the Pirate Bay, which is just not the same since they've moved to the .org domain in terms of selection. But I did find one torrent for Otto's Magic Blocks, and I am currently attempting to download it. However, I have not located any peers yet, so that is a backup plan that's in motion. But I'd like to try and get this installed, and sign in with my actual account, if possible. All right, well, this is done being transferred, so I can open it up here, and I can extract all files. We are going to go ahead and install Microsoft Works. Now, if you're not aware, Microsoft Office, everybody knows about. It's a very popular word processing and, just document editing suite. Microsoft Works is sort of in between Microsoft Office and WordPad. It's got more formatting capability than WordPad. It's a little bit more fleshed out, but it does work in its own file format, of course, that is not exactly compatible with Microsoft Office, and it does not have all the features of Office. All right, so this is not a free trial at the very least. This is a fully featured program. So we'll click through our wizard here. Next. Sure, we'll create a desktop shortcut. We don't have very many desktop shortcuts right now. That is the quickest slideshow that I have ever seen. They probably did not expect SSDs to exist when they wrote this. because those first couple of slides just flew. I mean, these are flying right past. There's no way you can read all of that. All right, almost done. We need to install other components. Okay. So now we're installing, Microsoft PowerPoint Viewer. So you can't create PowerPoint presentations in Microsoft Works, but you can at least view PowerPoint presentations with Microsoft Works. And then we do have some converters we can use to open Office files. Okay, so that's installed. Here's the icon on our desktop. You can see the color scheme. I always thought it was interesting what they were doing with their icons. These are the 4 same colors that you see in the Microsoft Office icon, but they are laid out in a different shape. We will agree to the terms. No, we will not participate in the customer experience program. Okay, and here is our Microsoft Works task launcher. It's sort of the dashboard. Now you can see, since we do have Office installed, we can launch Microsoft Office here from the Microsoft Works dashboard. However, we can also open up Works word processor. So check this out. A little bit different. It does not have the ribbon like Microsoft Word does. The default view is a little bit less nice. You can see there's no border above where the page starts, but we can start typing here. You can see we've got the Times New Roman font by default. If we click on here, do we have Calibri available to us here? I probably do. Yeah, Calibri is right there. And then we can turn up this font size a bit. And we've got a task pane over here, which is interesting. LibreOffice has a sidebar. Microsoft Office, at least for a long time, it didn't really have a sidebar, so they were doing some interesting experiments with the UI in Works. If we just scroll through our different drop-down menus here, you can see there are plenty of options for us. But in terms of formatting and things like that, it is, like I said, it's in between WordPad and Microsoft Word. There's not support for every single thing that you could want to do. We do have Works spreadsheet, so if you just need to do some simple budgeting, that is available as well, a little bit of an Excel alternative, but there is no PowerPoint alternative. That's why the PowerPoint viewer was installed. We have Works database, interestingly enough, which Microsoft Access does not come with Office, Home, and Student. You need Office. I think Professional comes with Access. Enterprise definitely has Access. But Microsoft Works, which was a free suite, or at least free for computers that had it, it included the Microsoft Works database program. Now that said, I'm clearly not super familiar with it because this is not going very well. It looks like we're just making a fancy spreadsheet. I'll click Done. Can we make forms in here like we can make in Access? View form. Yes, we can. Okay, so this is sort of like Microsoft Access. Once again, probably missing some of the features. But yeah, that's a neat little program. And then there's also a calendar here. If we click Open Calendar, we open up the Microsoft Works calendar. I'm not going to make it my default calendar because we've got Windows Calendar on this computer. And personally, I think Windows Calendar looks a little bit nicer. If we take a look at it here, this is the Vista Calendar app. Just a little bit more glossy, more simple. There is no week view in this calendar. Yes, there is. I usually like to use my calendar in week view, and this is what iCal defaults to, is the week view, but without the sidebars on either side. So we've got Windows Calendar there, and then Microsoft Works Calendar over here. Works is older than Vista, so this stuff was designed with Windows XP in mind before there was a dedicated calendar app for Windows. But we can go to week view here as well. You can see the week view is a little bit different in Works. In Windows Calendar, it shows you the days of the week going left to right, just like Google Calendar or iCal. But Microsoft Works, when you go to week view, it is just a list, which I don't like as much personally. So yeah, there's a little bit of extra software for us. There's contacts as well, of course. If we go to edit contacts, I'm curious what that does. Okay, that does just open up the normal Windows Vista contacts window, so that's good. All right, well, we'll X out of Microsoft Works. And if we go back into our transfer folder here, let's go into software setup again, and let's try installing HP Update and see what happens. Things are a little bit iffy right now because this computer, this is a physical computer. If this was a virtual machine, I would definitely be taking a snapshot right about now so that if I install anything I end up not wanting later, I can easily remove it without having to worry about how easy or difficult it is to do that. All right, but we'll go ahead and install HP Update because I want to try and get HP games installed, and this is one of the only other ways I can think of to try and do it. All right, that is done installing. We will go ahead and launch the program. Finish. And HP Update is open here. Welcome to HP Update. Okay. This application will exchange product version and configuration information with HP's website to determine what updates are available. Now, I'm curious to see how well this works. There's settings we can open here. We will not check automatically ever. I'm curious to see how well this works because, like I said, HP's website, they still have the information in the back end, but the front end does not have our product listed anymore. So let's see if this even shows us anything. Okay, HP Update Software Utility and HP Update Fix for Install Canceled Issue. This one's marked as urgent. So we do have 2 updates available right away. We'll go ahead and install those. The first one, the download failed, and now HP Update has closed. Okay, installation successful on the second one. We'll click Finish. Let's open up HP Update again. HP Update. Next. So HP knows that there is an update available for HP Update. But if we click Next, the download fails because they're not hosting that file anymore. So that's not very useful. And then if we click Send Feedback, we get a 500 server error. Okay, so it looks like that's not going to install HP games for us. If we look in our software setup, I did not see anything about games in here. The only other stuff I really saw that could possibly grab software for us is this right here. What even is this? If I try running, oh, that was probably the wrong setup file to run. That's not even a .exe file. Let's try running this one. This stuff normally asks before it finishes the install. So, oh, error opening installation log file. Okay. Null is null. Yeah. All right, well, that installer did not work very well out of its place on the recovery partition. So that's not what we were looking for. This folder's got LightScribe software. You can see YouCam is in here. We've got Shockwave. We've got Macromedia Flash Player back before that was owned by Adobe. We've got Slingbox. That's just a free trial thing. These are the applications for the Quick Launch buttons, which we already installed the driver for Quick Launch. So I'm going to try installing the Quick Play software first. And we're actually not going to install Quick Play from our recovery partition files. I did find a download on HP's website for Quick Play. So I was getting myself all mixed up earlier. We do have, I think, let's see, if we go into our CyberLink software here, the DVD suite and CyberLink DVD suite. If we open that up, we've got software to make DVDs and things, not to watch DVDs. If we click on Upgrade here, we've got YouCam, Power to Go, Power Director, Label Print. We do not have Power DVD. And I've actually got more. Windows Explorer wants me to finish what I started here. I found the version of CyberLink that was installed on my old laptop in these recovery files. But Power DVD was not even what I was thinking of in terms of watching DVDs. That was HP's Quick Play. So the laptop had a number of ways to watch a DVD. You could open a DVD up in Windows Movie Maker, or you could open up Windows Media Center. We can open up our Start menu and go to Windows Media Center, and it's going to start up a full screen. And actually, this is what was interesting about the remote control that came with these laptops, is that the remote control came with a button to start Windows Media Center. It's that green button right there that will open up this full screen Windows Media Center interface. You can see the button matches the logo in the corner of the screen on the screen there. So the remote control was very clearly designed for Windows Media Center in particular. But then if you clicked the buttons on the laptop, you would not get this. You would get an entirely separate program, which was HP's Quick Play program. Let's go through custom setup, sure. Windows Media Center is where you can enjoy a world of digital memories, music, TV, content, and games. All right, and I want to see, I'm curious, this is the remote control from the unit that I purchased from Greece, and this is the laptop from the United States. So, okay, so it does look like this remote control. It's either out of batteries or it's not working with this laptop by default. There is a disk battery in here in the back of the remote control, but yeah, it's not giving any input to this laptop, so we'll continue with our mouse for now. I do wonder if those remotes are hard-coded to a specific machine or if there's a way I can pair them. we'll go ahead and finish our Windows Media Center setup here since we're already started. So Windows XP had an entire spin, I believe, an entire edition just for media. But Windows Vista just included Windows Media Center. If you've heard of things like Kodi or MB or XMBC on Linux, they kind of give you a full screen interface you can use with a remote control, such as the one that I've got here. And they give you a way to use a computer as a DVR or an on-demand, basically your own streaming service. So it was really, kind of big that Vista included this by default. You can see it bears a very large resemblance to the old Xbox dashboard, the Xbox 360 dashboard, before they moved to the Tiles interface that came along with Windows 8. With this stuff, if I had a bunch of music and pictures and movies stored on this machine, then I could use my remote control, plug this laptop into a TV, and ideally it would be a very smooth experience. So that is Windows Media Center. And then if we X out of that, Windows Media Center Store Update Manager stopped working and was closed. That's fine. So let's see if our quick launch buttons work now. Yes, so here is HP's Quick Play. So once again, this is a full screen interface that you can use, just a completely different program, and this was totally duplicated effort on the part of HP and Microsoft. But you can play a DVD. I don't have a DVD in the drive right now. We can view our own files. Do you want to search for media on your computer? I'm going to click yes, but it should not find anything. Oh no, it found 184 files on a stock Windows Vista installation, which is interesting. But I don't see anything in any of the sources there. There's an advertisement. If you've got a TV tuner, then you could watch actual just, public TV on this machine. So we've got favorite games. Remembers the games you play the most and creates a quick link in favorite games. And then Microsoft Windows comes with a set of games. So we've got sort of some of the games here. Oh, and then there was a karaoke feature of Quick Play that I never figured out how to get working. So we've got Quick Play working. That's what happened when I clicked this is the Quick Play icon, this little arrow pointing at itself. The DVD button should also just launch Quick Play, but it should go straight to the DVD section. Yeah. So normally when I watch DVDs on the laptop, I would personally use HP Quick Play, usually. And then we know what this rotation button does. It rotates the screen. What does this gear icon do? Oh, that just opens up Windows Mobility Center, which is useful if you're on tablet mode on this thing. You hit the icon to open up the Mobility Center, and now you can adjust your display brightness. You can adjust your volume in here visually. Let me scroll that back up. You can rotate the screen from within Windows Mobility Center as well. We can change our power usage mode, which is cool. I think normally I kept mine on high performance, except when I was on battery power, I would switch it to power saver. We've been unbalanced in this entire video. So yeah, our quick launch buttons are working now, so that functionality is there. And then the only other freaking thing was that game. And I am going to get that game installed, but it's not on here right now. All right, so in messing around with the files that I already have downloaded, because I'm past the first few pages of Google and I've visited every link, everything's giving me just the same newest version of Wild Tangent. I'm very impressed at the distribution network Wild Tangent has seemed to build for itself, and that they can release a new version, and every single crap freeware website on the internet seems to update to that newest version right when Wild Tangent releases it. That's pretty impressive. I did try taking the file that I downloaded directly from Wild Tangent's website for the specific game that I'm trying to install first, and I went into the right-click menu, I went to Properties, I went to Compatibility, I checked Run this program in compatibility mode for Windows XP, and I also checked Run this program as administrator. That made the program actually open up. I couldn't just right-click and click Run as administrator. I had to select it under compatibility. That actually made it open. However, it does just say this product requires Windows 7 or newer. If I go in here and I uncheck the Windows XP compatibility, but I still say run it as administrator, guessing I'm still going to get the same thing because I'm still not running Windows 7. And unless I make a sequel to this video where I do an in-place upgrade to Windows 7, which I really don't want to do. Like I said, I like Windows Vista. I like the aesthetic. Nah, still just requires Windows 7 or newer. All right, guys, it's getting kind of late, and this is kind of a long shot what I'm about to try, but I did discover using EaseUS backup on the other HP laptop, just because it's the only other Windows computer I have in this apartment right now. I discovered within my HP partition backup, even though I didn't see any setup files in there, and I actually figured out the software setup folder that I showed you before, that came from the C drive, that didn't come from the partition, the recovery partition. But within the recovery partition, there was a 15-part WIM file. I copied that WIM file, that's a Windows image file, to my Linux desktop. I installed WimLib so that I could mount it, and within there, I found the files, the program files for HP games, which includes the game that I was trying to get set up, Otto's Magic Blocks, as well as the game console itself. So there's not an installer file, it was pre-installed in the image that HP shipped, and they never really provided a way to re-download it. Since if you restored your system and you wanted to install your Wild Tangent games, HP thought, well, we don't need to give them a download link for our version of the client. They can just go to Wild Tangent's website and download the client there anyway. Of course, as we know years later, the client on Wild Tangent's website does not work. So here is the HP Games Program Files folder. Now, the reason I say this is a long shot is because normally Windows programs are going to have registry keys. A long time ago, you could just copy the program files and that was it. But for a long time now, you really can't usually copy and paste program files and expect them to work between different computers because your registry is not going to know that that program's installed. However, this is a game console or a game client. It's not the most complicated thing that I can imagine. Most of the stuff in video games are going to be assets and things that are going to be stored on your file system. So I'm just going to try copying this HP Games folder and pasting it into our program files, and we'll see if it even opens up at all. If this doesn't work, and honestly I'm not really expecting it to, then worst comes to worst, I'll have to wait a little while, figure something else out. From what I've read online, I'm not expecting Wild Tangent's support to be super helpful, so even though I did email them saying, hey, you guys list this game as supporting Vista and I purchased it, how can I run it on Vista? I'm not necessarily expecting to get a good answer from them. All right, but let's at least copy this stuff in here. And okay, so HP Games is in our program files folder right where it was in the WIM image. You can see there is an uninstaller here, but there's not an installer. I'm going to go to the My HP Game Console folder, and I'm going to double click on Game Console. Failed to open file, row 0, column 0. And now I'm hearing a bunch of navigation clicks, which is kind of disconcerting. Oh, game console. Okay, so something is open, but it's not happy. It is not happy right now. Okay. All right, so that's not having a good time. Can I kill this? Let's go to Task Manager, in Task. Okay, yeah, I almost just rebooted, but no need for that. Does HP Update give us anything for the game console now, or does it still just give us the update for the updater? No, yeah, nothing has changed in HP Update. Okay, I'm going to try launching the game specifically then. So Program Files, HP Games, and Otto's Magic Blocks. So here's our application. If I double click, the game is not properly installed. Please reinstall. I'm freaking trying to. All right. Well, that is very close, but no cigar yet. How about if we try this other game console? It does the exact same thing. End task. All right. All right, guys, I feel like we are really getting close, even if there are registry stuff that we need to add. I mean, theoretically, I've got a WIM image that was taken from a running machine, ostensibly. So I do think that we have everything we need to get this working. Now, what I'm copying over right now and extracting is the program data folder. So before I copied our HP Games folder into the program files directory, of course, Windows Vista also has program data. Actually, I don't see program data here. It's probably hidden. Windows 10 has added a really handy thing where they've got a checkbox to show or hide hidden files right in the ribbon of the current version of Windows Explorer. But back in Vista, we had to search for our, actually, let's go to Control Panel. That'll be easier. I don't know what to search off the top of my head. We'll go to Classic View and we'll go to Folder Options. And in here, we'll go to View and Show Hidden Files and Folders, and we'll click Apply. Now that's going to show us a lot of stuff in every folder. Here we have our program data folder, so we'll go in there, and we've got Wild Tangent sitting here, interestingly enough. And that was modified at 10:07 p.m. There's one from 7:19 p.m. So some of this stuff might have been placed here when we attempted to install using an older version of the Wild Tangent client installer from earlier. So we'll delete that directory. All right, let's go ahead and empty our recycling bin. Make sure we don't have any links laying around. And then after this is done being extracted, we will copy and paste the Wild Tangent directory here. Hopefully this is what the Game Center was trying to look for and failing to find that was causing it to not work. So if we look in here, we've got all kinds of files. So we'll copy the entire Wild Tangent directory and we'll paste it here in our program data. I probably could have just moved it. That may have been faster, but that's fine. All right, so that is done copying. We'll go back out to our program files and we'll go into HP Games and My HP Game Console. All right, and let's see if it works any better this time. Holy crap. Okay, it actually opens up, guys. This is the HP Game Console. I'm not sure if I ever actually even opened this up once. I'm sure I opened it up maybe one time. I would find it hard to believe if it was never opened up on my laptop. Okay, so we've got an update available too, which is great. Hopefully, if there's an installer with this updater, then it will kind of help resolve any lingering issues that may still be in effect. I hope this update does not update us to an unsupported version of the Wild Tangent app. That would be kind of silly if they had that functionality. Wild Tangent Games, the product. Okay, so that quote-unquote update was for the current version that requires Windows 7 or newer. So the update does not get installed. That's fine. We've got HP Games installed, which is the exact same thing, just with the HP logo here instead of the Wild Tangent logo. I do not care what my default web browser is. Okay, so yeah, Internet Explorer actually is having trouble connecting to wildtangent.com. Okay, I should have unchecked always update automatically. If you guys noticed, I thought about unchecking that box, and then I thought, no, I want to get updates for the games. That was a mistake. Let me open up this game console one more time and see if we can't figure out how to disable those updates. No, don't update. All right, well, we're at home right now. If we go to My Games, we've got some games that I do not recognize. Let's see, I think the Game Center is, yeah, it is frozen right now. We're pretty much there. Okay, here we go. We're unfrozen. You are currently offline. Go online to receive the latest special offers and discounts. All right, so is it trying to update itself again? No. I'm looking for preferences. Where can I find the preferences? Also, this promotion section says that we're offline, but the status in the bottom left says we're online, so that's cool. Let's see. I don't see where to get to. Oh, settings. Here we go. So we've got my account, auto update, change. Okay, so that's switched to no now, so we won't try auto updating anymore. Cool. Desktop icon. We can choose to add icons to our desktop. So My HP Games, you can see the icon on the desktop there. And if we go to our games section here, is HP Games in here yet? No, it's not. I didn't copy all the shortcuts over from the default image. I can definitely do that. But let's just try logging in with my Wild Tangent account. So here's the part where we see if Wild Tangent has disabled access for old versions of their client or not. I hope not. The server cannot be reached. You may be offline or behind a firewall. I'm definitely not offline or behind a firewall. Oh, this is so frustrating because we're, like I said, I mean, this client seems to be working, but Wild Tangent's website does not support their own client anymore. Either that or it might be the Internet Explorer not wanting to get to wildtangent.com thing. And this is pretty strange because if I open up Opera, I can go to wildtangent.com just fine. And this is an old version of Opera, so it's not the most up-to-date thing. And if I cut that URL and I paste it into Internet Explorer, I hope it's not a problem with IE9. That would be kind of silly. But if we go to the same URL, we can't display the web page. So that just kind of is confusing. Let's see if we can launch the game directly. If we go to Program Files, HP Games, and let's see. Peggle was on here. Peggle's a really popular Xbox Live game. Assuming this is the same game, it was on Wild Tangent on PC, I think before it was on Xbox. All right, so let's try launching Auto now. The game is not properly installed. Darn it. Okay, so we've got our client launching, but we can't open our game. But we're so close. Jeez. You can see the date modified on this thing, 2007. Yeah, we really need to figure out, I think that Internet Explorer not being able to access wildtangent.com is related to this. If I click go to manage our account, going online, and I feel like this is built on Internet Explorer, it did launch IE a moment ago and we saw that. All right, and these issues are getting more and more obscure. I don't know how I'm gonna debug this. I could install Wireshark and take a packet capture of what's going on here. Internet Explorer seems to think that the website itself is down. The website is temporarily unavailable. DNS is not reachable. DNS does not have a listing for the website's domain. If this is an HTTPS secure address, let's see. Contact your internet service provider or network administrator. No, like it opens up in Opera, so it's definitely an Internet Explorer problem. All right, guys, I've got a new theory on what might be happening. Internet Explorer 9 supports SSL 2.0, SSL 3.0, and TLS 1.0. The current version of TLS is 1.2, and IE9 does not have options for 1.1 or 1.2. As you can see, with TLS 1.0 enabled, nerdonthestreet.com loads. If I disable TLS 1.0 as an option and reload my website, I get the same error message. If I check SSL 3.0, my website still doesn't load because I've configured my web server not to allow SSL 3.0 or 2.0 connections. They're too old, they're too insecure. So I only allow TLS 1.0 and above. So if Wild Tangent is wanting TLS 1.1, that could very well be our issue. Opera, since it received further security updates, that would be why Wild Tangent works over here. If I click details here, yeah, we're using TLS 1.2 in Opera. All right, guys, so I looked around online, and now that I've tracked down the specific issue, or what I suspect is the specific issue, which is that we don't support anything higher than TLS 1.0, I was able to find a Windows update. Now, this is not an update for Vista. This is an update for Windows Server 2008, but Windows Server 2008 was released shortly after Vista, and it's got a very similar architecture underneath. So this Windows update is supposed to work on Vista, and after we run this update and apply a registry patch, we should be able to enable TLS 1.1 and 1.2 for Internet Explorer. So we are going to reboot here. I just installed the Windows update. I forgot to put the SD card in my camera before I started recording, so that's why those first couple seconds were not captured. But after we come back up here, we'll see if applying the registry patch and enabling TLS lets us finally connect in the Game Center. This is going to be a very long video and or series. I'm thinking we're going to save the other laptop and putting Linux on the other laptop for a separate video. That's going to let me focus on it more and give it more attention when I do that. Okay, so now the very last thing we should need to do is apply that registry patch. So this is not vanilla Windows Vista anymore. This is now Windows Vista that we are combining with Windows Server 2008. Click continue here. But the point of this video and series, part of the point of it was kind of to look at Windows Vista and see how it stacks up in terms of today's operating systems and how much you're able to still use it today. And enabling TLS 1.1 and 1.2 is definitely something you'd want to do on a computer that you're using. All right, we will continue with merging, and we have updated the registry successfully. So now if we go into our internet options and we go to advanced, now if we come down to TLS, yes, we've got TLS 1.1 and 1.2 as options now. We're going to check those and deselect TLS 1.0 as even being an option. And then let's see, this is the point where we see if this entire hypothesis is correct or not. We will go to www.wildtangent.com. And look at that, it actually connects. Amazing. So now we'll open up the My HP Game Center, and let's see if it detects us as being online this time. An error has occurred in the script on this page. Do you want to continue? Yes. Yes. Okay. All right, well, it's not telling us that we're offline. If I click log in, script error. Oh, come on. We're so close. An error has occurred. An error has occurred. Come on. Okay, so we are not going to update the game console because we already know that the update only works for Windows 7. So we will decline that, and I'm going to click log in again. Before we can continue, you'll need to get the latest version. And I can see by the screenshots, this is very clearly the redesign that only works with Windows 7. This is so stupid. So now we're at the point where they're blocking us. We've gotten to the point where we're talking to their server successfully, and they're just flat out blocking us because we're on an older version of their software. All right, guys, we are resuming Windows right now, as you can see. This is what Windows Vista looks like when it's coming out of hibernation. All right, and I will just log in here. Now, try that again. There we go. I've spoken with Wild Tangent support. I've opened up 2 support cases with them in the last week, and they are being cordial but not helpful. They offered to refund my purchase of the game because even though the game's page says that it supports Windows Vista, which I told them is why I bought it, clearly the game does not work on Windows Vista, or at least I'm not able to install it because the game's app does not work. So I opened the support case hoping that they would just give me some sort of standalone installer for it. But yeah, they just told me what you're doing is not supported, and they offered to refund the game, which I will probably take them up on. Or I might not, because here I've got we'll call it a third-party download of Otto's Magic Blocks. It was a 6 megabyte file or so, and it took days to complete. But we're going to try installing this third-party version of the game here. Let me X out of the HP version, and let's see. This third-party version theoretically should not require Windows 7. It should not require the Games app. I'll click Allow for our installer here, because once again, this computer, I'm not logged into really anything except my Nextcloud instance. Okay, here we go. This will install Otto's Magic Blocks on your computer. So we're going to have, it's going to be a funny situation. We're going to have our HP Games app, which is, we're going for retro and nostalgia here. So we'll have the Games app, which I don't think I ever opened actually. And then we'll have the game itself, but we're not going to be using the Games app to launch the game. All right, and looks like the person hosting the third-party download, it's a torrent. We torrented this game, and they modified our terms of use. Information. Next. I'm going to uncheck create a desktop icon. We can go to the games section of our computer when we want to play it. Okay, finish. So if this works, it'll be the end of the video, and a successful end. The video's ending no matter what. But okay, so in our games, you can see we've got Otto's Magic Blocks. If we double click here, it opens up. No Games app required. Okay. Oh, and I recognize that music. Do I have... I'm going to Alt-Tab out here and just maybe turn our volume down a little bit. Oh, I was looking for on my keyboard. That's funny. I was looking for a hotkey somewhere at the top on the function keys to turn the volume down because that's where the hotkeys are on the laptops that I sell at my work. But no, the HP computer had its own dedicated volume buttons that, as you can see, when I push these, it does affect the on-screen volume control on the right side. So there we have it. I had honestly just kind of given up, and I had said, maybe we'll install a Windows 7 partition, and then maybe try and copy the games over. All right, we've got mouse control and keyboard control, difficulty, and then begin new game. And it's been really interesting, this particular section of the project, just because, like I said before, this was not a beloved game or anything. This was something a lot of people just considered bloatware. So looking for something that people, there were so many forum threads on how to purge this from your computer, not on how to install it though. So yeah. The point of this game, you want to move all of the blocks from pink to gold, and you want to stay on one color for as long as possible and collect the little power-ups, don't get hit by the enemies. Really stupid, simple game. And I somehow managed to die there. Alright. I don't remember how much of that game I actually played, because I'd never owned the game. I just played the free trial a bunch, so... So yeah, that is interesting and that is fun. I'm gonna go ahead and quit the game. Submit global high score. I feel like that would be a mistake, since this is not a legitimate copy of the game. But we should have... Oh, now we've got windowed mode. If we go to high scores... What happens if we just try and view the global scores? Oh, the leaderboards have been retired anyway. They don't even keep track of high scores, so I don't have to worry about that ever calling home or anything. Okay, cool. Well, I'm going to X out of that game, and with that... Guys, here we have such an obscure video and such an obscure project. I am a really nostalgic person, like I said at the beginning of this video, and when we destroyed my laptop at Extra Life, I really, I was bummed out about it. But what we've done here, what I have done is I have gone onto eBay, I have purchased a model of laptop that nobody else would be looking for, because it's such a it's an HP PC. This isn't some collector's item for anybody but me, because it was a very special laptop to me, my first computer ever. I made my first, well, not my first videos, but the time when I was first getting started with videos. And with websites and with computers in general. This computer was at the height of all of it. And it was using this operating system to start out with, Windows Vista. It's just so much fun to see all of it again. And just to have a neat little thing on my shelf that if I ever want to play some Inkball or play some Otto's Magic Blocks, or just check out a weird, poorly placed fingerprint sensor for a while, it's really great. Let's see, which one of these screensavers was my favorite? We've got Aurora here, which incidentally is the city that I'm in. We've got Ribbons. Yeah, Vista was the first OS to add ribbons, and that was one of the popular Windows 7 ones as well. Windows Energy, I think this is the one that I normally used. Yes. So we'll end the video off here. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this ridiculous video. I know it had nothing to do with Linux and it was not super technical. Just look at this screensaver. That's crazy. The frame rate's so low too, is another thing that's funny about that. I don't remember the frame rate being that low. The ATI graphics must have actually been better than the NVIDIA graphics. But this was certainly... I had this on in the background when I was not using this computer so often. That is crazy. All right, but I am going to end the video for now because I know this had to have been such a long video. I've run out of SD card space so many times already. Let me know what you guys thought down in the comments section below. Remember, you can watch my videos at nerdonthestreet.com in addition to Dailymotion and YouTube. But for now, I'm Jacob Kaufman. I'm the Nerd on the Street, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.